morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 4th day of November 2024. Welcome to our show. Very exciting times that we're living in right now, and I think we got a lot to talk about here today, and I'm going to bring my buddy Chris on right now. First hour is going to be Vicky Davis, Technocratic Communism, Chris Deal, Christina Holbrook might show up here today too at 10 o'clock. Jason Ickes at 10 and Chris Kaijala at 11. He called me yesterday, which is unusual for Chris, and not this Chris, other Chris. And he said, "Hey Donna, when are you going to get me on BNN?" And I said, "I don't know when you want to be on." He said, "Tomorrow before the election." So I'm sure that Chris has got some more investigation into what's happening right now that he wants to share with us. But we're going to start out here with Chris Deal, the big deal. American security. What's happening, Chris?
The other Chris, how you doing? Well, I just woke up to, and good morning to everyone watching. I just woke up to, oh wow,
I love how real this show is. I really do. It's great. Bunch of friends hanging out, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I got to show you something quick, and then because let's run into this. Did you see where they killed that squirrel and that raccoon? I am so pissed off over this. I have no words. Did you hear about that?
I heard about it. I listen. This is a time when what they are doing is they are trying to push all of our buttons because they want to start a civil war. That's what all of this is about.
Yes.
Don't pay attention to it. Don't believe that. Only believe what you see the Congress and White House actually do, which I witnessed. And I'll be damned if I'm going unsaid. Thank God for your platform for what they're about to do.
Well, I just don't. There's so much lying going on from people who allegedly say they're on both sides or on either side, but they're all working together. And so the point being is that there's lies coming from people that are purveying the truth that say, I'm on the right. Like, let's just talk Fox News right now. I'm kind of like out on Fox News. And so we have to be really careful who we follow. And if they can't bring the receipts, if they can't bring what actually happened, then we have to really question it. But I did do a little bit of an expose here because I'm still mad about the squirrel thing because I don't like people killing pets. Okay. It sucks. So anyhow, avenge me. It's Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon. Vote President Trump. And here's the chick that called on him apparently. And she's a photographer. So hopefully nobody will ever hire again for her attack on a squirrel and a raccoon. And so here, so DC or Benny Johnson put this out here, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. He said Trump wins 48 states if he does this. I think it's absolutely hilarious. Okay, it's a joke, people. I know anybody who's here is probably not a Democrat or a Marxist with no sense of humor. It's like I think this is just hilarious. So anyhow, the rightful president of the United States coming in for a absolute killer win tomorrow, and everybody better get out there and do their duty to vote, or don't you make me go all mom on you.
Yep, everybody get out and vote. That's the most important thing you can do, especially for what they're trying to do. May I say, according to the UN, according to what's not being talked about, what's not being told to the American people is that Joe Biden, the Harris administration behind our back, is colluding with the WHO. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has been taken over by, guess who? China. Okay. The UN, you might as well say, has been taken over by China. I don't know that to be true, but I believe it to be so. The New World Order is they're having a global meeting. I think it's on September 17th. I'm sorry. They had one on September 17th. What they're trying to do, what they want to do, Joe Biden's already done this. Joe Biden surrendered our country to the UN. You can look it up. He has surrendered our country to the UN, to the United Nations. The World Health Organization is partnered with the UN. And this is what the World Health Organization wants to do. Right now, there are a bunch of senators, a bunch of congressmen are getting together to pass a bill to prevent this from occurring.
Morning, Vicky.
Biden has surrendered our country and our sovereignty to the United States.
Good morning.
The authority. This is what the WHO is about. They have a contract that they're meeting on to determine the authority to be handed to the WHO due to emergencies regarding global shock, due to pandemics, due to bioagents, things that happen in space, to trade agreements and emergencies, to cyber emergencies, to weather emergencies. In other words, anything that they can create or make up or cause can give them the authority to act. This is an invasion of the American people's sovereignty. This is an invasion, not an attack, an invasion against the Constitution of the United States. This is an invasion against the United States, every single American. We cannot give our sovereignty to the United Nations or anyone else. We will not. The American people do not know anything about this. They don't want it to be heard. Well, I'm telling you, it needs to be heard. It needs to be heard real loud. Real loud.
What else? What other information have you gotten, or where did you see this, Chris?
I saw this on YouTube. This is a gathering of senators. It's the House of Republicans roll against the UN. Let me see if I can. This is scary shit. And I had heard about this before from a guy that House Republicans hold press briefing about U.S. sovereignty and the World Health Organization.
Can you put that link into the private chat, or is that a separate screen?
It's a separate screen.
Okay, let me see. I'll see if I can pull it up, guys.
This is an act of, this is high treason. To surrender our country to any entity. The word surrender, I mean, they've already created the pandemic. They've already created emergencies in this country.
Yeah, there you go. It says House Republicans are standing up to what they call a push by the United Nations and WHO. So it looks like they're standing up to it. They're trying to push for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So
behind our backs.
Yeah. It's, well, they've been at this for a very long time. So, I mean, this is one of those things that for a very long time, it just they've been after our country. But the last few days I've been hearing a lot about, civil war, blah, 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 blah. That's fake MAGA. That's those Antifa twits.
Yep.
And burn, loot, and murder, morons that are fake MAGA, that are trying to do the wrong thing. You know what? I think that when we're in a situation like this, it's okay to be good and mad. I mean, go ahead and get good and mad over it, because sometimes that gives you the go to do what you got to do. But what we don't need to do is grab your torches and pitchforks and start acting like the village idiots, like the Antifa twits and the burn, loot, and murder idiots out there. Just have a little peace here, because I really believe that God's in control. I really do. And I'm not saying that to like say, oh, sit back and pray, like Gentile Jesus with a lamb on his foot. That's not what I'm saying at all. There's a time to step up and serve and do the right thing. But, our voices and the pen is mightier than the sword. I hope it never comes to that. It's like that is the last resort. And we're not even close to that right now. But when I hear those words, look at how this is coming out ahead of the election and election cycle. It's almost like predictive programming, trying to get everybody into crazy land here to do something stupid, because it's the bad guys that want us to do something stupid. Okay. I'm not saying don't act. I'm just saying, just take a deep breath and let's sit back and make a plan here that's actually going to work, not just one that where a whole bunch of people are going to get, killed and they take over the nation. A little calm in the time of craziness can change a whole situation. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a crisis, one voice of calm and reason can change the entire situation, and bring people back to their senses and say, look, we're going to get a plan here. Don't worry about it. There's so many of us, and there's so few of these village idiots running around. I'm just saying that. Okay. They don't produce anything. They don't do anything. They're kind of stupid, really, because all they focus in is on evil, on their evil plans to take over the world. All I can think of is Pinky in the Brain right now. I mean, that's kind of what I see when I see these people running around. It's like Pinky in the Brain, right? And it's going to come to nothing, because there's so many of us. All we got to do is get a good plan, rely on each other, do things in very, very calculated stuff. I mean, look at the devolution stuff. Okay. They went through devolution to take the country down. All we got to do is follow the steps back, and we can bring this country right back into where it needs to be. I don't think anybody, first step is round up all of these people that have been pushing for this, pushing for war, pushing for unrest. That they need to be rounded up, because they're traitors. They absolutely are agents of subversion, and they can never, ever be allowed to be in the public again, where they're going to start all over again. Because you know what? A leopard doesn't change its spots. You're not going to rehabilitate these people. God can, but it's not likely.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I don't mean to interrupt. There are people with dual citizenship. There are people that are here assisting in the takeover of this country. You are very right about not to react, but we have to respond.
Correct.
It does piss us off. That is not something to act on, because when we get emotional, that's when we make mistakes, and that's when we lose wars. Wars are won on ideology thinking, not emotional thinking. This kind of an act, this kind of the things that they've been putting out and airing, is designed to push your emotional buttons.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that CIA does very, very well, and has done with the American people ever since its existence.
Don't you feel like that this is like another form of Fedsurrection right there? They're manipulating the ever living life out of everyone. And anytime your emotions get kicked in, guaranteed they've gotten to you.
Yes. Well, they've gotten to me, Donna. and listening to Christina last week, I know they got to her a long time ago, because
well, listen to me. I go into crazy lady too sometimes, and it's like, all right, everybody out of the pool. You couldn't play with the toys you have, kids. It's time to start behaving better, right?
I've seen you with a pitchfork in the barn on a good day when you're happy. I would hate to see people how they would respond if you got pissed off and had a pitchfork in your hand. Not having a good day.
Yeah, that gives the meaning kebab a whole new meaning.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Horse
So
back when you grab that fork.
what?
Those horses run out the back door when they I think they all figured out how to open up that gate and just go out the door when they see you come in the morning.
You sprint for the gate. Didn't even think I could move that fast. So there you
Yeah.
go. Some days are better than others.
You move fast, and that's when you're not pissed. I'm not pissed. I'd hate to see you when you are.
So Vicky, how are you doing this morning? We're talking about the UN moving to solar sovereignty, and the GOP is actually doing something right in this regard with at least saying the warning. But here's the question: why are they not going after legal actions? And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I said I need a bill looked at and reintroduced. And one of the senators was at a meeting that I was at, and his response was, "It's not going to matter." He said, "Anything we try, the Democrats are going to block it." Well, that's not a good enough answer for me if you really want to know the truth. It's like, so you just stop because you think that the fight's going to be tough, so I think there are ways around this, and people probably are not thinking in the way to win some of these arguments when something needs to be done, and they're just obstructionists. You've got to get in there, and you got to kind of lay the law down on them a little bit. But you know what I see is most of the time these guys are trying to be friends. They don't want any conflict, and so they're avoiding doing what needs to be done. We need some people to go in there and just not interested in what you think about me. I'm only interested in the people that I serve, and that's it. And you guys either get on the right side of the line here, or there's going to be some there's definitely going to be some extra action, and we can actually mobilize the citizens. So I think that's honestly one of our best weapons is when these politicians give you some jackass answer, which most of them are, right? When they give you one of their little evasive answers and such, that's okay. We never needed them. That's the point right there. All we got to do is stand together and go and tell them what needs to be done and get more and more people that are willing to step up. And I don't believe that everybody is apathetic as everybody says they are. We just don't have any leadership right now getting them moving in the right direction so that we can fight them. And they're so good at dividing us out that they intentionally divide us so we can't stand together. So we just got to get past this division thing and say, okay, this is nonsense. We need to stand together and hold them accountable. We can do that through a number of ways.
Yeah, I think, Mike Johnson is just as much of a tool as Kevin Brady was. Or that isn't his name. What was his name? McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy. And because I think it would just be fabulous if they put together a bill that, saying we are getting out of the UN, and then every member of the House, whether it passes or not, stand up and talk about it. It's like a media blitz, to educate and inform the American people. Because before I started researching, I really knew pretty much nothing about the UN, except that it was out there. There was a building in New York City. That's really what I knew about the UN. But over the years, as I've studied it, our whole political system, they do intend for the UN to operate as a world government. The reforms that the UN has gone through over the years has been to centralize power in the same way that any governing entity would do, so that they have a hierarchy of authority. So people who think that the UN is just a toothless tiger out there, they're so wrong. It's incredibly wrong about that.
Yeah, we've got to fight it, and sometimes, when you think about fighting the enemy, you got to use their own tools against them. So like I was doing a live stream with Stephanie Lambert and Stephanie Scott down there in I can't remember the county that it's in right now, but we were down there and I was doing a live stream, and there was some of the people from the media that showed up. You know what I did? I turned the camera on them. You should have seen them running to get away from the camera. They're used to hiding like a bunch of little cowardly pukes behind their camera. And I just took the camera and I went like that, and I held the camera on the press. And all of a sudden, you should have seen them. They were like this. They're like deer in the headlights. I'm like, you're going to point your camera and try to frame some good people? Guess what? We're going to have your names and we're going to put your faces out there, just like the squirrel and the raccoon killers. It's like the people that turned them in like the little Nazis they are in order to do damage. Put the camera on them. Make them run for the shadows because they're cowards. And we can do all of that. Just like, and if somebody's not doing it, like Fox, fraudulent Fox News, when they refuse to do that, fake fraud Fox, okay, then put the camera on them. Show them for what they are. If they refuse to tell the truth, they'll run. They're cowards.
Yep, they run like cockroaches when the kitchen lights turned on.
Yep, it's a disinfectant.
Uh-huh.
Right. These people. This is what we're fighting, and this is what they do. They inject fear in the American people, and the reason they do is because they can't fight. They're chickens. They're little cockroaches. I'm telling you, they would run the minute you put your eyes on their eyes. Those people would piss their pants. Mm-hmm. We're fighting the man behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz. Remember the guy behind the curtain? What happened when the curtain came back and he was exposed? And they looked at him. The mighty wizard has spoken. Right? He got he screwed up. Look, this is what they are.
Yeah, I was telling a friend, I guess on Saturday or so. Oh,
Alex,
this is an amazingly sophisticated war that's against us. It's a media war. It is, and it's really from the government, from the top down. Government war on the people. There were articles, they were calling countries over in Europe autocracies. Well, that's what we are. Through all the international trade agreements, they've turned the presidency into an autocracy. I don't know if you noticed how many signing statements, how many executive orders Donald Trump gave. I have to say I haven't looked at the ones Biden has signed because I can't stand it.
The kid sniffer, the kid biter.
Yeah, I mean, I know what's going on, but they have created what's called a unitary executive, basically CEO of the country. That's why Trump could sign an executive order raising tariffs, and he could sign an executive order to stop to order the Border Patrol to do their jobs. And Biden, by the opposite, could sign an executive order saying, let them come in. It's because through these trade agreements, these international agreements that they signed, they have created something that our form of government never was intended to have, which is an authoritarian government. That's what we have.
Right.
Exactly what they accuse Putin of.
Well, they're afraid of Trump because of the fact that they know the tariffs are coming. They know that the hammer's coming down, and they've all gotten together and they've all had their meetings, and the whole design is it's a war on America.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about the United States, is that they're supposed to be managing our asset, right? They're an asset manager. They're supposed to, that's what the government really is supposed to be doing, right? Why are they not running it like a business? And why is there not a return to we the people? That's what I want to know.
They are running it like a business, but they're
For
selling
them.
the assets to other countries, to other businesses. No, the money is not going into the treasury.
It should be paying back to the people, like in say like Alaska. If you're in Alaska, you get a payment from the resources from the oil taken out of the state. Okay,
that's
royalties.
because of Ted Stevens. That was part of the negotiation for statehood, and he was involved in that negotiation. So the people in Alaska got very lucky that he was negotiating.
Yeah, that's what we need all over the place. I mean, why is Nestle pulling millions and millions of gallons of water out of the state of Michigan for a $250 permit that they can just walk in and walk off with our resources? What kind of a moron would let a company do that?
The U.S. State Department, the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Trade Representative, and the freaking members of Congress.
Right, every one of them are traitors.
The U.S. State Department, as far as I'm concerned, is like an enemy agent. They are like what would you say it? They are the department that if we were an occupied country under control of a foreign agent, that foreign agent would be the State Department. They in no way represent the American people or our country.
No, it would be the United Nations.
Yeah.
The United Nations designed, united to unite all the nations. That is the new world order, is what you're looking at. That's what the United Nations was really designed for to begin with. The slow intrusion from the 40s has never stopped. This has been a scam, a decade of scam to misinform people, to misguide and mislead people, to make us feel comfortable, complacent, and totally dependent upon our government, to take away all of our independence, our independent thinking, to dumb us down. Look,
traffic kids.
To on an electrical grid in everything that we do. The electrical grid is just a model, their business model of what they want to do. They put you on the phone, the cell phone, they put you on a computer, they take away maps. Remember maps? We used to go into Rand McNally maps to find out where something is that we don't know, right? Now we are dependent upon the navigational system in our phone or on an electrical device that we have to put in. Everything that they want to do, for what we do is a plug-in. They want us to drive electrical vehicles. They want us in every electrical aspect they can have us dependent upon, so that they can turn the switch anytime that we disagree with them. And that will happen if we ever get turned over to the United Nations or the WHO.
Might happen, but even before that, because they'll never tell us once the UN starts, running the show. I don't think you'll see blue helmets in the streets or white helmets, because people have guns. And so I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, a blue helmet is the enemy. He might as well be wearing an X on his back. But
well, I think they've that warfare too is going to change. So it's like how they've been running drugs up here in the submersibles or half submersibles, and they've been building them just more pathetically. So the big Navy or the big military contractors and such that were putting just trillions of dollars into this stuff, we're getting beat out by the drug cartels with little boats made out of wood and wood glue, a little bit of resin, and they're just running right past them all. And I think that's with the drone technology and such. I mean, I can just see these guys down there in their little druggy grottos, right? Hey, give me a few more leaves over there and a bucket of resin. Let's see what we can do, right? I mean, this is so low tech. But if they flood us with, like, I don't know, 100 of them or 200 of them, and 3 of them get through and they sink the rest of them, they don't care. They don't care. The people are in high stakes poker to try to get it through. And if they get sunk, oh, well, they just either die or they start over again. The game has changed.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the whole post-World War II system. You know about how Kennedy, JFK, signed legislation for the complete and general disarmament of the United States, right? Are you familiar with that?
Just a little bit, but I'd like you to explain what you know, because you always know more than I do on all these subjects.
Okay. Well, in I think it was 1961 or something like that, there was legislation that went through the Congress, and Kennedy signed it, and it called for the complete and general disarmament of the United States. They looked at the U.S. economy as if it was a war economy, which, post-World War II it was. They fully mobilized our industrial base for the war. Well, in 1961, they passed this legislation calling for the disarmament of the United States, and he signed it. And there's a defense. As a matter of fact, I have a page on it. There was a woman named Bernadette Peters who just did awesome research, incredible research on this.
Can you put a link up there in the private chat for this? I want to see this.
You bet.
This is actually not what I thought it was. So this is kind of like crazy.
I'd like to do research on Bernadette Peters.
Yeah, she was an amazing lady. She was a gun rights person. And so, complete and general disarmament is the ultimate in disarmament, end of guns.
So okay, not Bernadette Peters, the blonde actress, I'm assuming.
Oh, no.
Remember her? She had like this epic blonde hair. Super ditzy character. Okay, let's see.
Maybe it's Bernadine. It's Bernadine Smith, and her website was Liberty Gun Rights.
Oh, I was going to say Bernadette Peters. I was just like going, like, wasn't she like
a Carol Bernadette Peters?
Yeah. It's like a little lost there. I'm like, okay.
I only have half a functioning brain today.
Okay.
But anyway, that's the article. The other, So the other part of that is defense conversion, and conversion of the weapons of the military's weapons production to be for civilian purpose. Well, what Bill Clinton did when he came into office is that he was going along with the defense conversion, and our economy became about technology, disarmament and technology. And so technology was supposed to be the our salvation, for replacement of the military economy. Except what did they do? They, gave money and authority to the defense contractors, and they built a police state. They built technology for a police state. And that's really what we have.
Yeah, they can kind of cancel us all very quickly if they can turn your bank account off, your communications off, and moving towards that digital ID. That's a real problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they could send a drone out and take out your house.
One of the I think maybe I'm gonna go do some a little deeper research on that. I think that picture was superimposed and placed on there because John F. Kennedy was opposed to that, and I believe that that's why they killed him. His brother was against it too. They were big on defense, on building our military, just like Donald Trump is.
Uh-huh.
That's why they wanted to kill him, because he didn't want to go along with stripping our country and because he knew that would go to stripping the rights of Americans. That's why.
Yeah, well, he gave quite a few speeches on it. He had the Alliance for Progress initiative, and his idea was to go help the people in South America develop, and he's the one that signed legislation for USAID and the Peace Corps, and just on and on and on. It just he's the one that really built the on the ground foreign policy structure, for foreign aid. But there's a website. Are you familiar with the University of California at Santa Barbara?
Nope.
Okay, it's UCSB dot. Let me type it in there. But they have a presidential archive for all the presidents, and you can go read the speeches. I mean, they've put it all together. I love that library.
President Johnson that got the Peace Corps going, but yeah,
Kennedy was killed in 1962, right? Wasn't he killed in 62?
63. Johnson
63.
Was. Or, I mean, Kennedy was.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Kennedy was never able to. He didn't live long enough to actually inaugurate it or whatever. So Johnson did pick up where Kennedy left off, but it was Kennedy that signed that legislation to create it.
Well, back then those things were that was a turning point of that was when, look, they've been since the 40s trying to push like, let's take the name Peace Corps. Doesn't really mean Peace Corps. It means indoctrination camp. It's re-education camp, getting people to work, taking people away from broken homes and getting them involved in lifting up other countries. Robert F. Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's policies were to enact Peace Corps, meaning Peace Corps. You've got the other part of the government that's been infiltrating our country since the 40s, because you need to go back further and check out Germany and their ideology, because their ideology infected our country before 62. And they've been trying to and the easiest way to or I should say vehicle to get their ideology into the United States was through the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the weakest link to the strength of our nation because they will fold under any emotional ideology. The mafia, for example, used the Democratic Party to serve its needs. The Democratic Party is the weakest link to get something done if you want something done illegal.
Yeah. Well, the
Democratic Party. The
whole peace movement, which really turned out to be kind of terrorists, actually, like Bill Ayers and Marcus Raskin, who is Marcus Raskin worked in the White House. Actually, that's Jamie Raskin's father. But the whole peace movement, they were really terrorists.
Exactly. The peace movement had nothing to do with peace.
Right.
People, emotions, to grab onto the peace movement, the name peace movement. Well, hell yeah, who wouldn't want a peace movement?
Uh-huh.
But it was the start of the injection of how can we get the American people to move the way that we want them to move. False identity, false movements. It's a great trick to tell somebody one thing and make them stand on a corner with a sign to object a policy that the government might be doing, right? Mm-hmm. And then another one, and then another one, and another one. And they start with always the weakest link. It's no different than school shooting, which I could go on about that. But it's never about what you really see out there.
Yeah, that's true. The issue is never the issue.
Right. It's the opposite of the supposed issue. And CIA has been using people to do their bidding under under the guise of peace, love, and no war, civil rights, and all this. And it's not about that at all. None of that was about that. It was about how do we capture the American people and make them do what we want them to do.
Yeah, well, they're trying to bring everybody under the UN as a world government.
You can lie to the American people and get so many of the uneducated or easily motivated through emotion to act on something that you put out there that actually never happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is a good exercise in broadening what we think happened and looking into it a little bit more too, so that we can see. Because I've always kind of liked Kennedy. I thought Kennedy was a good president. I mean, there is no president that's out there that's going to be perfect because we're human beings, right? And we're going to always find something that we might disagree with, which is a good process, really, because that means we're thinking. But I really liked Kennedy, and I really think that that's something for me to at least look into, because this is kind of new territory for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, who knows what he would have done with it. The thing is that...
Hold on 1 second. Okay. What I'd like you both to do is research Bush Sr. He was a director of operations for CIA.
Absolutely.
He also worked for the United Nations.
Go ahead and find out where he was.
He was a special representative to China for the United Nations.
You're going to find, I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to say it without documentation, because I don't have documentation to back it up.
Go ahead, say it. I might have the documentation.
Okay. He was the director of the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh, okay. I don't have that, but a lot of people believe that.
I'm sorry?
I said, but a lot of people believe that he was behind the assassination.
Okay.
Well, look at him and Baby Bush there, who were, around some of the crazy stuff around 9/11 and other things that were going on. You can look at the proximity to a lot of this stuff, including, I mean, there's just so much of it that when you look at it, it's kind of like a common sense thing when you look at it. You can't look at all these connections and say, oh, it was just coincidence that he was standing right there. Oh, it was just coincidence that he was in a school reading, I pet goat nonsense with the kids there in class, and basically spelling out in an almost satanic ritual exactly what was going to happen as they stopped and came and talked to him. I mean, this is some crazy crap. And it sure looks like a global, like a death cult of murder and destruction. It's and you have to kind of wonder about it,
Well, I totally believe that it is. It's also that what is happening in our country is incredibly sophisticated. It's psychological warfare. It's economic warfare. They are doing everything they can to bring our country down. The agreements that they signed, the Security and Prosperity Partnership, that ended our country. All during the 1990s, Clinton was negotiating agreements at the summits of the Americas. Are you familiar with those summits?
In what year?
Starting in 1994, the Miami Summit.
No, I'm not really familiar with that.
Negotiating basically the merger of our countries. If you're working on systems and you are harmonizing your systems, at some point you can bring those systems together and nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. And that's what they did. They negotiated harmonization among the countries, the North American countries, Canada, US, and Mexico, but also the Organization of the American States, to establish a regional governing structure under the UN. So I don't know if you know, but during the pandemic, let me bring up this page for you.
What's really interesting to me is, even if you hear the titles of things or you're somewhat familiar with it because you've done so much background work under any of these things, I'm going to fail your test because I don't know exactly what you know, because you've been researching for so many years on this, and the connections you've made are different than what anything I've ever seen or anyone that's talking about this out there. This is like Jonathan Cagle. Jonathan Cagle is just flipping genius level researcher. He's incredible. And it's because he's making connections with things, and it's a gift. I mean, we all do that in different ways, and I love to hear other people's connections, things that I've never heard of or that none of us have really heard, because it takes years and years to amass this kind of knowledge. You don't just get this by being at this for like 5 or 10 years. This is a lifetime of study for you. And we really appreciate all the knowledge that you're sharing with everyone, because it's just incredible.
Absolutely. I agree.
Well, I swear, when I first started, I felt like I was racing with the devil, for trying to figure out what in the world, because what I was seeing was so different than what I understood our country was about and who is in charge, and just what in the world is happening.
Well, and we got to stand on truth, not what we want it to say or what we feel like we are defending our own territory of belief systems, because we could be wrong. And I'm going to guess we're wrong on so much stuff. It's incredible. I was, just as a point of, to strengthen this, is that I was in Dearborn, and a lot of what's been out there is how a different perspective of Dearborn than what I had. It was I had a great time there. I was welcomed with open arms, and it was a wonderful experience. And so we've got to be really careful, even to defend people that we like I like President Kennedy. I thought he did a great job, but we need to critically look at what people actually do, the issues and that sort of thing, so that we're not building people up as untouchable heroes or anything like that, because that's kind of a way that they've taught us to think. We got to have heroes and villains. Doesn't work that way in real life. We're people, and people make good decisions. They may make bad decisions. Nobody's going to get this perfectly. Even if somebody has really good intentions, they may be fed bad information. And all of a sudden, what we see is our heroes, we're ready to attack them with vengeance because they let us down. Well, maybe they're just a human being that are trying to pick through it. And it's
and putting money in their pockets on the side.
What's that? Put
money in their pockets on the side.
Yeah, but we've got to be looking at this and saying, this is an issue, and holding people that are in office accountable and saying, well, you got about 95% of this right, but this other 5%, we really need to talk about it. And they may not know. And there's so many people being threatened right now that if that's the one thing that's really come floating to the top for me, is how much the drug cartels, are threatening people and their families. And if you don't think this is happening, well, I got a lot of news for you. It's time to catch up here. This is going on all over the place. I've always wondered why people are so afraid. I look into their eyes and I'm like, that person's afraid of something. I don't know what it is, but they're afraid.
Yeah, I would agree that it's the cartels. They are a weapons system, and that was one of the great things that Trump did, was to round up all of the gang members. They should be declared domestic enemies, and they should
absolutely.
If they are gangs, South American gangs, I don't care which one, get them out of here.
Mayorkas, for example, to me, and I don't have documentation on this, is a cartel.
It could very well be.
I'm going to tell you something. Everything that we research, that we find in easily picked up avenues, such as using vehicles like computers, you also have to understand that they're going to let you find what they put out there. It's not always something that may be the truth, rather something that is put out there to either confuse you or mislead you. You have to consider not the source of the information that you got it from, but the source of the source in which you get information from. And until you can get there, really what you're doing is just repeating somebody else's words that they want out there because they want to change belief and ideology.
Well, we got to stop with the popularity contest and trying to put people up as heroes, and this has got to stop, and just look at the information, look at the procedures, look at the MOs of people, but not necessarily the people, because you're never going to find the perfect person. It's not going to happen. We're gonna have people that hopefully make the best choices possible and are honest, but we've got to look at what they do, because good people could be absolutely tanked, and bad people could be getting a pass just because they know the right words to say, instead of, that's great, I like the nice words and such, and it makes us all happy, happy joy going on here. But the reality is that that's how they mislead us in both directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's 100%. It's what I can say and talk and just make you think that I love you to death. But if I'm sitting there stabbing you, trying to stab your children in your back or something, well, that doesn't quite represent what I may have just said. So you're absolutely right. It's the actions that you have to look at. That's what tells you what that person is about.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the politicians. You got to ask whose hands up their rear end moving their mouths.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we got going on in the majority of people out there. And so you can, it's like who's moving the mouth, who's talking. That's why I'm fundamentally against anybody who's, let's just say, a news anchor. And there's two of them that are out there. I've got a lot of questions. I really do. A news anchor is a spokesperson. Who the hell are they speaking for? That's what I want to know. That's what they're paid to do, is deliver a message.
Yeah, that's not for us, I guarantee you. I heard someone say that the newspaper editors or the newspapers, that's the first draft of history. So whoever is telling the story correctly, they get elevated into these political positions, but they're off the screen. Nobody, unless you watch think tanks all the time, you don't know who newspaper editors are or what they do or anything about them. All you know is the pretty faces they put in front of you, the bubbly airhead, that tells you the news.
Like Tudor Dixon, I'm going to say it right there, who was a device. I was telling somebody this the other day. I'm like, this is the problem with most people that don't go into the background. It's a popularity contest. It's like, yay, let's have go team, go type of stuff, like high school crap, right?
Exactly.
DeVos put Dixon up, and then as soon as she won the primary, they jerked the money away. And I there's no way that they weren't all in on this. And when you start looking at backgrounds, I was telling somebody the background the other day. I'm like, you guys didn't look into her background. I went out to Norton Shores and talked to business owners out there. Their family destroyed the foundry industry in the state of Michigan and Muskegon. And I talked to people who were left holding the bag for $35,000 for their business because they didn't make good on what they did. And then not only that, I dug further, and they're global information sellers. And then you look at Lucent, the Lucent connection with the schools, and look up the record. I went and I looked in the record on Laura to see what they claim. Most of these people will claim, oh, we're doing a $5 million, business here, because that's what they all use. Look at it. There's patterns there. So of course the education thing that Tudor Dixon supposedly put together was 10-minute clips on the news going into our schools, but claimed like $5 million in what the company's net or gross. It was just like, I'm like, right, you're going to go into the schools and get $5 million for 10 minutes of news clips, and then start putting together the rest of this stuff that's behind it. It's like, I'm looking at the whole thing at that point in time, like the entire state of Michigan has been captured and turned into mindless drones for these globalists. You've got to look behind the scenes and then watch their debates. Her and Witless there, that was like a couple of 16-year-olds doing a cat fight. I wouldn't put them in charge of an ant farm. It's like, are you kidding me? Ditzy 1 and Ditzy 2. You want a news anchor? Whose hands up her ass moving her mouth? That's what I want to know on all these people.
Yeah. Well, they pretty thoroughly in this economic conversion, defense conversion of our economy, where theoretically they were going to eliminate weapons systems, which they did do some of those, by the way. I don't know if you remember or not, but when we went to war against Iraq, our soldiers didn't have Under Armour for the Humvees because the idiots were producing those in a smoothed out supply chain. So they got 6 Humvee undercarriages per month because that's what the supply chain called for. So that's why over in Iraq, our guys got blown to hell in those Humvees.
And the supply chain is run by policy, and policy is enforced by our president. President Obama also went ahead and told for rules of engagement for the Marine Corps that if attacked and then they set their weapons down, you are not allowed to fire upon them, even though they fired upon you. So, you know, when you tie the hands of people that go over to the Middle East that are thinking that they're doing the right thing for their country, they're willing to die for us, okay? And you have President Obama that tells them, oh, by the way, they better not have that rifle on the ground, even though they shot at you. You can't shoot back at them. But the ones beside them are shooting you, but you can't shoot that one. What that does, that puts the ability, or that puts the fear of God in these soldiers. If I shoot this person, am I going to go to jail?
Right, and that's absolutely. My personal opinion is that our soldiers were set up for slaughter in Iraq. I would never say that to a veteran or to, his family, but that's what I believe.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's what needs to be said, though, because it's like I would guess that there's a lot of people out there that know the truth. I mean, Chris was in Vietnam, and when you listen to actual people that have served, there's a lot of guys that have served in the bankers' wars and the rich men's wars that were building. That I'm pretty sure they know exactly what was up, and it's like they're patriotic in the best way. But when we abandon our veterans, when we abandon our soldiers, when we do what they did in Afghanistan, you know what? I'm going to tell you what, if any one of these people in office decide to send our boys and girls, our young men and women, our older men and women, whatever it is, into war, they better put up some collateral of their own, which is either their children or people they know or something. You should not, you know what I mean? It's like if you're gonna go out there and let other people's kids get killed, there needs to be some accountability there, and not just treat people as a commodity to herd out there and watch them get shot at like a video game. Just a bunch of numbers out there, not individuals who are very loved by their family and their country. This is wrong.
That was a Mark Milley debacle. He should be held for treason for that.
Second one on the planes on the way to Gitmo, right behind Mayorkas.
He violated military protocol by leaving, by not protecting the people. He abandoned them. The military doesn't leave first. You have to get the people out. You have to protect the people first. You don't leave weapons back for your enemy. You destroy it. You blow it up.
Yeah. So why wasn't he court-martialed?
Of military protocol. Now maybe his orders came from.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to give you a few minutes because Jason's in the back there, because we could sit here and talk all day long here. But sorry to interrupt you. But yeah, I mean, there's no end to the criminals that have been sitting at the top at waging war on the United States of America and we the people. No end to these people. And we're just, I'm proud to stand with all of you out there who are true Americans and who are willing to fight for this nation as a family. It's an extraordinary thing to watch and be a part of.
And what they don't know is we're ready to go back. I don't give a shit how old. We're ready to go back. I'm not going to run as fast. We're not going to be able to jump as high. But look, there's going to be a wall of patriotism and heart that these people are not going to be able to defend against. Fuck them. I got to go.
It's all good. It's so amazing to stand together. And I just got to tell you, Chris can go beastly on people because he's not going to mess with those that are going to hurt the people he loves. And I always appreciate that about you, Chris. You want somebody that's a big brother protector around you. Chris is that. And just always appreciate you, because not only are you smart, but you're brave. And it's amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It's the best of America. It really is. So we can either cut to Jason, or I can bring Jason on. Let me bring Jason on a minute, because I don't want to leave him sitting back there. Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. You've been listening to this conversation. We've got the brave guys back here again, and I love it. I love you guys that have served, because it's like I said, you guys are amazing, and it's just fun to listen to what you have to say.
Well, thank you. I've been listening in. I would like to bring one thing up from the previous conversation. There was a sticking point regarding Bush Senior's as the director of the Central Intelligence Agency during the assassination of JFK, and that's not true. He was not. That was he was almost a decade. Well, not a decade, but a little under a decade later is when he took over. During that time frame, he was doing other things, but he was actually running for office, I believe. Now, that doesn't mean that he didn't have some sort of affiliation at that time, but he has espoused that he was not part of the agency, and his service was through the Air Force, and he was a pilot in the Navy. So there's a possibility that maybe as a high-level officer, he had been involved in some things, or maybe because his family was wealthy. But what I will say is that he became the ambassador to China, and given the current situation with the Marxist overthrow of our government, and what him and Kissinger did to open up the doors for the Marxist infiltration of our country, I would say is probably one of the most egregious things that he could have done in the effort to globalize the world governance system. He after he came back from his ambassadorship, well, he wasn't actually the appointed ambassador. He was essentially the senior ranking person and was filling the shoes as ambassador to China for a year. But when he came back, his opinion on the U.S. involvement globally had changed, and he had determined that the U.S. needed to be more involved, and he believed in bringing about the one world government. And those are from his own statements and what's posted out there. So in all of this, before Kennedy's assassination, you've got George Bush going over to China, coming back and saying, I think we need to move forward with this Kissinger plan, which is opening the West, opening the Far East to trade, to normalizing relations with communists. And they believe that through democracy that they could influence and get a foot in that door. Well, the problem is that in all communist countries and in communism in general, it's a totalitarian state where they have full control over everything, all the means of production. It's a very, very centrally controlled and almost omnipotent system where you've got such egregious control from the government down into the fine details with all the centralized planning that there is no real way that you can have the CIA go in there and run officers without them getting turned or without them getting found out very easily who they're talking to. And so it's highly probable that many of our agents, and I heard one anecdotal story that there were several agents that were murdered in China in the last 5 years, but that the idea that we could have normalized relations with a communist country goes back to the ending of the McCarthy era, where they were rooting out all of the communists from the U.S. government. And during that time frame, in the 50s, they shut down the Communist Party U.S. Not entirely. They, for all intents and purposes, they shut down the doors. But they didn't actually shut down. They kept a very skeleton crew there, and they sent everyone else over to the Democrat Party. And
the most important communists they left in place. You know, Harry Dexter White and Alger Hiss. Well, Alger Hiss became president of the Carnegie Foundation. But I question whether did we open up China or did China open up us? Because it was during the it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. During the Carter administration, that's when he really set up the agreements with China and declared our country was a free trade country, which really surprised me because I didn't really think about Carter in terms of the trade agreements until I found out that IBM actually went over to China in the early 70s. And at first they were off Taiwan, but then they built a special economic zone on the mainland.
Yep.
Which is a hugely important thing when you start looking into the technocratic tyranny. You know, the global systems that have been built that actually turn out to be the tools for our enslavement.
Yeah, it's in the unrestricted warfare doctrine, it's referred to as elite capture. So when the technocrats that are elevated through economic warfare attain positions of power and influence and then maintain those relationships, those were built on the backs of Chinese slaves, basically slave labor. What they do is they force extremely harsh conditions on their people, and they drive down production costs to virtually nothing, and they subsidize everything. You know, the United States isn't much different when it comes to like corn or other produce that we heavily subsidize, and that gives us a huge advantage over other countries around the world. Well, if your government's subsidizing the production of something, of course it's going to be cheaper. Well, the Chinese knew exactly how to take down a capitalist system, and that was to leverage their ability to basically enslave their people through very harsh conditions and make them essentially the cogs that allow the machine to undermine a capitalist system. Mm-hmm. Those markets were, so if you, for example, I'll throw out two examples, Amazon and Walmart, right? If you look at Walmart's economic model, they come in, they sell very narrow margins, and it's like 2 to 3% profit margins, and they flood the market, and it kills all of the surrounding business because, look, we're a capitalist society, right? So we want cheap goods. We all go out, we want to buy what we can get for what we can afford in the best quantity we can.
I don't think people would have wanted that, though, at the expense of our country. What Walmart did is to tell manufacturers, you've got to meet the China price. Well, the only way they could meet the China price is to move over to China, you know, so
yeah,
we had
exactly
mass
right.
exodus of manufacturers going over to China so they could meet the China price.
Where's Walmart's headquarters?
In Arkansas.
China.
Oh, their headquarters.
No, it's Arkansas.
Used to be in Arkansas.
In Billy Boy's backyard there.
That's right. And
Hillary, watch the Arkansas sightings begin, right?
What's unique about the state of Arkansas, and how does it become a central hub for a brand like Walmart?
Oh, I don't know. You have Billy Bob down there and Hillary, and they're doing drug deals out in rail yards and something where kids are getting killed and stuff like that. I don't know. I've actually got friends down there, so but and they're honest.
China.
Well, what do you need? Because Arkansas doesn't have any international borders. They have no way to get all those goods and things in. So what do they have to have? They have to create alliances with other states that have shipping lanes in order to bring in the Chinese goods to support the infrastructure.
Oh, well, they did something very clever. George Herbert Walker Bush did something very clever. There's such thing, international law for inland transport. So as long as you're going from a seaport inland for commerce, you can go port to inland port to inland port. And that's exactly what Mexico did. They had China built 2 ports, southern Mexico, and then they have 5 inland ports right up into the United States to Kansas City, to the Kansas City Smart Port.
Thank you, NAFTA. Thank you, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Well, actually, that was in the, that inland transit provision, that's been in law since 1921, since the Barcelona Declaration under the League of Nations.
I actually love this, that we know each other well enough at this point in time that we'll actually sit here and correct each other. And I think this is like a really good process, quite honestly.
Oh, I love that. I mean, if I got something wrong, tell me, because I want it right.
The fact that the agency, that's great information. I really would like to know where you got that information, because where I got mine, wow, I got a lot of research and a lot of rehabilitating to do.
Morning, Christina.
How are you guys doing this morning?
How is it that all the mouthy girls, the 2 mouthy girls, get on the left side of the screen?
Yeah, that's not right.
Jason.
That's not how it's displaying for me.
Oh, it's not showing that way?
No, I got a scatter grid over here.
Okay, well, on the left side of the screen are the 2 mouthy girls, so there you go.
Oh, I see what you're saying here.
Yeah. So no, I mean, this is all good stuff to go through. So Jason, I wanted you to specifically be on this morning again, because we want to talk about the election. 11 o'clock, Chris Kaijala is coming on to talk about, he called me and said, hey, when am I going to be on BNN? I said, when you want to be on BNN? He said, before the election. I said, okay, I guess tomorrow at 11. So Chris is going to come on. So there's some stuff that's going to be coming out about this. And I really do believe that all of us standing here together really want a free and fair election where every single American, not illegal American, has their voice heard. And it's important that we look through all these systems, see how they've rigged them and how they've changed and rigged everything. I really think that this is an important. Oh, I didn't do that, Vicky. It just kicked you off. Oh, she rearranged it. Now
I've got a hard break time. I've got another meeting to head to, but at 11, so I'll be cutting out here a couple minutes.
Yeah. So tell us what else has come up recently, because you're right in the thick of it.
Let me just first, I don't want to steal any of Chris's thunder, so I know what he's been working on. I know what those guys have got, and it's great. So I won't address that right now. I'll leave that to him to do. But what I'll highlight here is that we have a very, very serious problem with a couple of different critical aspects. One is that, obviously, if anybody's been paying attention, they heard about Colorado and the password leaks. And the passwords are not that complicated to begin with. But once you know the sequence of how they're generating their passwords, you can pretty much guess within a handful of tries what the passwords are, if they're even modified at all. what we've seen in the past is that passwords are super generic and they don't change them for very long periods of time.
Like 8 zeros or the word password. I mean, which one's it? There was one out there that had 8 zeros on it, and that stood for how many years? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. There's one, and I don't want to divulge a bunch of election vulnerabilities because I don't want to get blamed for when it becomes apparent that everything was hacked. So what I will say is that it's already been ongoing, and what is evident is that you can see. I just heard another story this morning of someone's relative, the immediate relative, that was going to cast a ballot, and they couldn't. Every time they went to hit Trump, it would highlight Harris, and it took them like 4 or 5 tries before it finally switched. So you have to be persistent. You have to know what you're doing, and if you're not checking your ballot, by all means, make sure you check your ballot.
Was that the Kentucky story?
It's across the country. So remember when Jocelyn Benson came out and said, "Hey, that we have an issue here because of the VATS, the voter assistance terminal." Well, yeah, there's voter assistance terminals, but there's the programming, the software there is in two of the versions of Dominion's machines, but it's also in ESNS and HARP machines. So ESNS express vote machines in Florida and in Texas have had the exact same issue that the Dominion VAT machines, which are ImageCast X, and there's Evolution, Dominion.
ESNS.
Image Evolution. Anyway, so you have those 2 machines, those 2 companies, and then the one in Kentucky, I believe, was HART. So, and then the last story that I heard was also a HART machine. So that pretty much means it's running the gambit. All of these. The interesting part here is that during Holderman's testimony in Georgia, he highlighted that it would be really easy to just make the code look.
Thanks, Chris, for coming on today.
Sorry about that, Jason.
That's okay. We'll see you tomorrow, Chris.
So he brought up the fact that you could very easily make it look like a bug, and you could effectively change or alter 4% of the vote without anybody realizing it and everybody thinking it was just a bug. That's the exact intent of any nefarious, foreign, advanced persistent threat. That's exactly how they will carry out any sort of attack. Think
plausible
of
deniability.
That's exactly right. Plausible deniability. So what we've got is a very clear indicator that the machine's been compromised across the country, all of the brands pretty much, and that it's a very subtle modification in the code that is causing this. Any sane person that has all of those critical facts that is in the cybersecurity realm could logically conclude that you need to do a digital forensic image. You need to find out how things are not performing properly, and also when did those changes occur. So you get your original golden image, you find out if the bug was already in the image that was distributed. You then find out if it wasn't, how did it get in there? Was there an update just before they went and did the logic and accuracy testing? Look, they're not going to find most of the stuff in logic and accuracy if it was one machine, and they don't test all the machines during LNA, right? Logic and accuracy, they just grab a machine. But did they do this for all of them? No. What are we finding? We're seeing that 1 or 2 of the machines in an entire room are the ones that are infected or have this problem, right? And that's exactly how you want it to play out, because you don't want everything. If everything goes haywire, it's blatantly obvious that somebody has done something. But if it's one machine acting up and acting, yeah, true, absolutely, we are in duress. Well, when we cannot ensure the integrity of our vote, and we can't be honest about whether or not there's issues, you're being silenced. First of all, that's First Amendment free speech. That's the one of the very foundations of our nation. And if there's problems and you can't talk about them,
Right.
pretty good indicator.
Dilution of the vote. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on. I mean, I mean, I don't really, you can't say that there's one thing that's changing everything. It's the whole thing. They've got this thing rigged at the programming level. And then they've got people like, Benson out there who's, you got to wonder also who's got their hand up her ass moving her mouth too, because she's not
She's Soros. She's a Soros goon.
Yeah,
Soros,
that's what I was going to say.
Point being though is that we can say Soros, but we can also look at some of the other connections she has too, which should be really disturbing with the amount of people in her community who are dual citizens with with another entity, which we all know what it is. And I mean, I think we need to question all of this stuff. I really do. We can have no protected class of citizens. We've got to look at it as criminal behavior. Either they broke the law or they didn't. It's either good or it's evil. You don't get a pass because you're this or you're that or this or that. It's what's the behavior.
Well, Donna, the playbook that came out during Maduro's last election here, and I don't know if you guys were paying attention down south.
Yes.
But in Venezuela, he lost by a significant margin, and they just certified the results that they wanted. This is the exact playbook that is currently underway in the United States.
They did it in Michigan, and I look at, you can't speak out about it. You can't talk about it. I mean, this is some straight up communist crap going on here. Everything we ever heard that has happened in other communist countries, they're doing the same thing here. The only thing they haven't done is lined us up and shot us in a mass grave, but they did it through the hospitals and the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm the one that's going to be saying it here. That's fine. They've already
That was a loyalty check. That was a purge of all the people who wouldn't go along with their authoritarian takeover. That was a loyalty check. And that was them cleaning and purging the system of those who wouldn't obey their orders. That's the first step. So in consolidation of communist power and the Marxist agenda, you're looking at a 6-year timeline for full totalitarian control. And we are in the last year of that consolidation. And by the end of next year, they will have finalized the communist takeover of our country.
If we don't do something, and with that said, that was their plan. I say we just do a complete and utter about face for these communists, kick them to the curb here, and get our vote out there and vote the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in the history of the United States, and stand together as one nation under God. Not a whole bunch of little personality and identity clubs, but as one nation that stands together and kicks them. If we don't stand together, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose bigly. No more fighting, no more nonsense. We're going to stand together and get this thing done. And then we got a real problem.
But Donna, who are you standing with? Because they already got millions of them already, and 10% of the country is, potentially infiltrators.
Well, that's okay. That's not as big as the 90%. I'm standing with the 90% that are ready to go in there, kick their tail.
Yeah, but then you got
what it's like to be an actual American who's saying not just no, but hell no, and this stops now in this generation. I mean, there's enough of us that are unwavering. I mean, it's amazing how many people are stepping forward and saying, you're not going to destroy our families anymore. You're not going after the kids. You touch a kid, automatic millstone situation happening here. It's like there's so many of us that are done with this that I really feel like, honestly, maybe everybody need to be shown what it was going to look like if we lost it all. And
I agree with you.
Thank God they haven't rounded us all up in the street and started shooting us point blank here. But if we don't do something, it's coming. And what I love to hear is, when you listen to President Trump speak, when you listen to all those around him speak, it's like it's a come to Jesus moment on bad behavior. and there's not going to be negotiating with drug dealers who are intentionally killing people, the people who are bringing the fentanyl in this country, the gangs that have infiltrated this, the politicians who have taken the money and been paid off by the cartels and by other nations, and who have money laundered, coercion, threat, subversion, treason, all of it. And you know what? The crimes against humanity. We're done with this. This is over. The game is done. And I think that, I think they don't even realize maybe how big of a hornet's nest they kicked.
I don't think they realize, Donna. But, there are people that are ready to go, like us. But then you have a lot of people that are just complacent and they just sit on their couch, and if it doesn't affect them, then who cares?
Don't worry about those people. Look, 40% of the population is never going to, they're NPCs. They're not player characters. They're not participants in the political, anything.
Well,
All
in
right?
life, I mean, there's so many people that aren't even
Look,
engaged in
completely
life.
checked out.
They stay within about a 6-inch bubble around their heads, and don't even realize they've got a neighbor next door to them. Oh, I've got a neighbor. Wow, I thought I was in the middle of my own little universe,
So exactly. So I wouldn't even, some of this gets people discouraged when they go and talk to somebody. Look, if you look at it as in the law of large numbers, and you're going around and you say, okay, well, 40% are completely written off. They're not politically engaged. There's a reason why we only have about 60% voter turnout in the United States. And that's because roughly 40% are not, they don't want to have anything to do with it, right? The other 60% are split roughly in half. And of those, you have a small contingent of 1 to 3% of the overall. And then within that cohort, there's up to 15% inside that cohort that are actually actively engaged in politics, whether it's donations, showing up to events, talking and sharing content. The rest of them are only in it because they're associated with the other 15%. So when you think about politics, if you think about it in those terms, you're not winning new people over. All you're doing is educating the people within the cohorts whether or not they should participate. That's the truth. That's the reality of the matter. Either you're turning people on or you're turning people off of what's going on currently. And so if you want to get people to win this election, look, if you're in Michigan or in other states too, but particularly in Michigan, what we just had happen over the weekend is on Friday, the 2 clerks that were removed in the UP for saying that they were going to hand count the paper ballots.
UP?
In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Okay. Sorry, that's a Michigan.
Yeah, sorry.
Karen's gonna be rolling her eyes at me, right?
Oh no.
We're Michiganders, and we have our own language. We're a little special up here,
That's okay.
Yeah.
I just needed to clarify.
2 clerks said that they were going to hand count paper ballots. Jonathan the Brader, the director of elections, had them removed.
Criminal. I hate that little guy.
That guy,
Weasley guy,
spent 12 years at the Brennan Center for Justice, the left-wing think tank, doing what? Advocating for illegals voting, non-citizens voting, and against voter ID.
I hate that guy. Okay, I'm just going to say that. I know we're not supposed to hate people, but every time I go in there, I'll look at him and go, I'm back. And you can see him just like cringing in his little Weasley way, sitting there behind his little Weasley podium, right? He's the one that said basically, we were making up policies on the fly. All right, that's what he said when they kicked me off the ballot. And I'm sitting there in the hearing in that center.
I watched that hearing yesterday.
Yeah, he's the one that said, we were making up policies on the fly. Good move, Brader, you lawbreaker, you denier. It's like, I can't stand that guy.
But the
moment he had him removed.
What's that?
Yeah, Brader had 2 clerks removed. So on Friday, Stephanie Lambert was brought in as their attorney, and they filed suit against Jonathan Brader and Jocelyn Benson for that unlawful removal. And
every clerk in the state should be suing these people.
bingo.
Every clerk in the state should be
Yes.
suing these people because
Yep.
they were sent a letter that told them to destroy election records.
That's right.
And the
An unlawful order.
And the village idiots, like the ones sitting here in Byron Township and broke 4 election laws, listen to it.
Yep.
And it's like they listen to that letter because they're taking orders from the state. It's
That's-
Byron Township. It's just about the whole damn state did it because this little Weasley bastard sent a letter out telling them to break the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what they did. And that's why Tina Peters is now in jail. And that's why Jenna Griswold, by the way, is now. So today they have to make a decision on whether or not Jenna Griswold committed the same crimes as Tina Peters.
What crimes did Tina Peters?
They're just like making up policies on the fly because they're all sitting there at the table with Jonathan Brader, who happened to be the chairman of the board of Eric. Oh my God, how could this go wrong?
Eric.
He's like a gatekeeper of the voter rolls. I mean, how could this possibly go wrong?
You know, I've been saying for a long time they just make shit up as they go. I think that's a democratic quality.
Look, they're power hungry, but they think that they're doing it for some
little Marxist altruistic righteousness.
They're fighting for utopia.
Some great moral
they know better than the rest of us. We're all a bunch of idiots. You know, the only way they're going to be happy is to throw us in concentration camps, give us a little rock to pound for a while, and then decide to shoot us when then they get sick of feeding us. That's the mentality of these morons, right?
Well, yeah, and if you think about it in the terms that they're coming from, so where they've been educated is that the world population, indoctrination. When the population exceeds a certain point, that the Earth's resources cannot sustain it, and so it starts causing climate change, right? Well,
that's bullshit.
So they want to depopulate the Earth so that way humanity can survive. But the reality is,
this is the bravest guy on the planet. Just like kind of like dawned on me. He's got 2 mouthy females, one on each side of him right now, and he just keeps going like the Green Beret he is.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah, right. Just going straight forward. So this crazy guy, Jonathan Brader, did this insane thing, and now he's getting sued. And any other clerk that wants to do the same thing, and they all should, reach out to Stephanie Lambert. Find her on. She's all over the place on the news right now in regards to all of this stuff. But she's willing to file the same lawsuit on behalf of any other clerks in the state that want to do it. And she's also in several other states. So
I was in a live last night talking about the election machines with, I don't know if you guys know Pablo, Josh's friend Pablo, I can't remember his last name. But they were talking about the election machines in the state of Texas where they had to change a law or change something so that they could count their ballots in the primaries, like hand count ballots. And they were going through all of the stipulations as far as like how, you know, going back to hand counting our stuff would be beneficial. And it dawned on me last night, like sometimes I'm pretty slow. I can be pretty slow on some things, but it dawned on me like why either we never had a problem before with this election and these machines, and or we've always had this type of fuckery in our elections where they're manipulating you know, who wins essentially. So I was talking, like, I think at some point, I don't know what the laws are as far as hand counting your ballots, but I think it would be beneficial for everyone to, you know, start legislation, petition your county, and then, you know, if you see shit going on, do not allow at the county level for them to certify these votes. And I don't think that, because I didn't realize it. I'm pretty educated. So I don't think a lot of people really understand our election laws and what can and can't be done, nor do I think they understand their ability to have a voice in it.
I gotta show you something. Okay, so yeah, not only do they do that, but these guys don't care. So this is Mr. making it up on the fly, making policies up on the fly. Little creepy Brader, who's got that oh shit look on his face, which he always has on his face. You know, he's just always got that same look on his face. Oh shit. Well, you know, things are going south right now. So Christina, just so you know, it was like when I got there, they lost 10,000 of my signatures under the supervision of this guy right here, right? 10,000 signatures out of the count are missing. And I look at him and I go, what'd you do with my 10,000 signatures, Brader? And he's like, you know, he's like turning in his kid with like a fourth grader on Red Bull, trying to get away from, you know, the problem. And until I sued in the Supreme Court, the signatures were gone. And he writes me the most dumb ass letter. Looked like a dime store novel. It's like, I sent everybody to look for the signatures and they weren't there. Then I instructed everybody else to go look in another room where we never keep signatures, I might add. And lo and behold, there's a box full of signatures and they appear to be the missing Brandenburg signatures. Now you tell me.
But this was after the fact, right?
It was after I sued in, I got up, it was my second suit. That was the one that I finally sued in the Supreme Court, and he finally coughed him up. Now you tell me how he could lose 10,000 signatures in a room they never keep signatures and have the guts through the little squinty eyes to look at me and say, and then put out this stupid letter that says, this is what I did. I instructed them, like, oh yeah, you're a real hero now, you know? It's like, it's just the craziest thing. They just do what they want. And so, you know, if you're going to get into anything, you got to remember, you're going to have to keep their feet right to the fire. You're going to be nipping at their heels like a hound dog, and you aren't getting off the trail until this stuff stops.
Listen, don't get me on your case. I'm a fucking pit bull. And I do not stop at all. I'm relentless.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a good
well, remember this guy. Remember this guy here who sent out a letter. That's the guy right there who sent out a letter to all the clerks telling them, and I had an interchange here with our clerk who was told, well, it went up to the state. They sent him a letter, and the state said, don't talk to the citizenry. They said, ooh, and I said, well, where did it go? Well, I don't know. And then she hung up on me after she couldn't win the debate on that one.
I get hung up on a lot too, Miss Donna.
Yeah. Well, they're all a bunch of weasels. They're weasels.
You know,
they weasel into the position. They weasel into their policies. They make policies up on the fly. They're like a bunch of rabid little weasels running around.
You know why?
Because scavengers. That's why they are. They're scavengers. They don't do anything.
Why though?
Scavenge. Why?
Because they know it's tried and true that once they steal the system and they're in the position of authority, they can just do whatever they want. So as long as they lie, cheat, steal their way to the top, it doesn't matter because then they're at the top. And that's exactly why you can't let those people in power in the first place. But you know what? It goes back to, if good people don't do anything, that you end up being ruled by evil people. And
I used to not see people that way. Like, I am, a good person. I try to afford that to everyone, like that everyone has some common decency within them. And it wasn't until the last 4 years that my eyes are open. Like, no, there are legit people that exist in this world to do bad things. And boy, was that was heartbreaking for me, because now I look at these fucking Democrats, all I see is demons, and that's their fault. That's not my fault. But I feel bad for their fuckery. It's like, come on now. What the fuck is going on? I know there's more people like me. You just don't want to think that people have the possibility of doing those things. And they do it off the rip because, like with Madonna, they know it's gonna work. You didn't get into office, you wasn't able to fix the things. They know it's gonna work, and they do it regardless of the consequences. So they found the signatures, right? But that doesn't matter because all of this shit is already done
So
and
it's done.
happened.
The damage was already done.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
it's like it was done by the signature gatherers. It was done by the state. Every single one of them was in on this, and it was done by the Republican Party.
I know
And
that's
everybody that was in on the investigation has said the same thing. And then of course I get premised, oh, we're going to give you an apology. We're going to give you an apology. Where's the apology? No apology. It's like, I'd like to see that
what's
happen.
that apology going to do anyways?
It's like, you know what? Have they apologized
Romneys?
to Donald Trump, the rightful president of the United States? I don't see any apologies. I haven't seen anything coming out.
Hold on. You remember that was at the time that Ron Romney was in charge of the Republican Party.
Correct.
And,
Mitt's niece there, Mitt, who was involved in Burisma in Ukraine.
you want to go back to a little bit more history?
Yeah, I like this. I like the smile because you know where I'm going and I know where you're going on this one. Go ahead.
Well, I'm here to learn.
Where was Mitt governor?
Where was what?
Where was he governor? Mitt
Utah,
Romney?
wasn't he?
Huh?
Where's he? Utah?
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where he instituted the basically Obamacare 1.0 at the state level. And then what's interesting about that is where he was. He's been all over the place, but that is also a Bush hub. So
it's like a nest. It's a crime nest.
It's
right?
Like the same families. It's the same families. They all are in on the same dirty schemes behind the scenes, and it's a club, and we're not part of it, right?
Oh, okay. I got a couple questions for you since you're here, and I'm just going to ask it. Right? It's just like the oligarch families in Michigan. It was DeVos that put Tudor Dixon up. No two ways about it. And then they yanked all of her funding because they really wanted to whip her in. You don't want to upset the apple cart there, right? And so, looking at all this stuff, do you ever ask yourself some questions about like I like everything Eric Prinz has to say, but you know where I'm going with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Betsy DeVos's brother. I mean, they all have great words, great smiles. Go military, go blah 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 blah. Look at what they're actually saying, what they're doing. He sold out Blackwater to, I believe, Apollo Global, and I think there's some other questions there. So, would you like to chime in on this, Mr. Green Beret?
Say
or
that
are you
name
going to
again.
bow out on this?
Apollo Global. That's a whole infrastructure, but
yeah, that's a whole infrastructure of what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, no. So Eric's an interesting character. So he was actually running the Belt and Road Initiative security at one point in time. Now, because of who he is and what he's done, if you haven't watched the Patrick Byrne or read his book, the new docuseries that's out, it's $5. It's on Rumble. General Flynn produced it. It is excellent. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. It's $5, totally worth it. It's 3-part docuseries, 2.5 hours long, but it outlines something that, and I'll get back to Eric Prinz in a second, but it outlines a scheme of maneuver that is used by the deep state, right? In order to retain power and control. And if you watch it from the perspective of what are they doing and why are they doing it, and then you look at the after actions, you will begin to see the picture painted that shows you exactly how things transpire. And if you switch out a name for another name and think about that, it might help you understand some of the axis and placement for where some people have been and why they may have been put there, or of their own will. But that doesn't mean that, for example, Patrick was, he was thinking altruistically. We're rooting out corruption. So they were using him as a tool, and he thinks he's out there doing good, but it turns out that he's being used by the deep state, these nefarious actors, corrupting politicians in order to control the game. And when he came to the realization that he was just a pawn in a greater scheme, that's when he realized that, holy cow, I have been taken. That's why General Flynn helped produce this. He wanted to get that story out. It shows how these bad actors within the system used other people who wanted to do good things, and then they took it. Now let me jump real quick over to another person, Jack Smith. Jack Smith worked at The Hague. While he was at The Hague, he was bribing people that they had gotten evidence of crimes, war crimes, including some Serbians, right? So Jack Smith was running an extortion gig instead of prosecuting people, and he was making millions of dollars on it.
Well,
take that and translate that to the United States. If he's only about money, then he doesn't care about the rest of it. And if he's at that echelon where they're prosecuting crimes at the Hague or in the United States, they're for sale. These people are for sale.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's no two ways about it. I think a lot of people realize that, they're for sale. And unfortunately, so they exist without no morals, and we exist with morals. So, and it's almost like, in order to beat them at their own game, you have to, set aside some of your, I don't want to say morals, because you should never set aside your morals, but to beat them at their own game and understand that it's almost like you have to become that, understand the way that they're thinking and be willing to think that way. Does that make sense? Am I saying this right?
No, it's absolutely.
I think what it is you got to understand the enemy, and that way you can predict what they're going to do, and you can avoid the pitfalls.
Yes.
A lot of people will say, oh, this is one of the most nonsense things that I've heard is like, you just study the authentic one, the good one. I'm like going, who taught you that? I want to know what the enemy's doing, right, so that I can predict their behavior.
Yeah.
Good is good. It's like I want to know what the bad guys are doing. I want to know everything they're doing.
So, for example, within the United States, being a heavily Christian population, it's easy to manipulate people on ideology, right? Absolutely. Oh, they can play the Christian card all day long and appeal to their Christian ideology to forgive and forget, to say somebody's bad because they did something. So on one hand, they're saying, oh, forgive and forget. But on the other hand, they're saying, oh, but that dude's a sinner or whatever, right? So in the same landscape, they're using ideology to drive people in both directions when it befits them. So you have to be very careful with discernment. In our country, we have a lot of people who've infiltrated the church and use the ideology of Christianity in order to manipulate and control the masses. And
taking the Lord's name in vain.
Sorry,
go ahead. It's like, what about the Seven Mountains Church that sit right there with DeVos's? And, it's like anytime I see somebody that's got a global company like that, and then they pair up with, with something like the Seven Mountains Church, which I believe they are, it's like you really should think this thing through, because, you've got the 501c3s involved in it. You've got them, shutting down when COVID comes through, because they know how to get to us. And, I'm sorry, this preaching of Gentile Jesus with a lamb sitting on his foot, go ahead and take a kick to the face every 5 minutes, because that's what we do as Christians. It's a bunch of crap.
Look, we don't need any of the C3, C4, all that garbage. Get rid of it. We don't need any of it. There's no need for it. Trump's already saying that he's going to get rid of the individual income tax and go straight to tariffs. I think that's brilliant. I think we don't need this whole infrastructure and architecture and all these reporting requirements. Get rid of it. And you have your First Amendment protected free speech. If you want to be a part of a church or a cult or whatever, that's your prerogative. But at the end of the day, the government doesn't need to be digging through your finances. If you need supplies or you need to travel, you're going to pay to travel. You're going to pay the taxes on importing the goods, and so you're going to contribute that way. But you don't need to be in everybody's business and down to the minute, payments and who's involved and who's part of a congregation and whatnot. That all needs to be cleaned up and gotten rid of. But I wanted to put out there that you have an infrastructure of infiltration that has been going on for a very long time. There are good institutions that have become bad, right? They weren't created bad. They weren't created on bad auspices. They were created on good auspices. There were good people that want to do good things. Bad people, because good people got apathetic. They stopped. They didn't want to fight for the position, right? They don't want to have to fight against the person who will do anything to be an authority, to be that, because there are people who are power hungry and they will do anything to get that position. Good people will turn a cheek, right? They'll say, you know what, I've got other better things to do than to beat my head against a wall against somebody who's illogical and like
the Democratic Party.
Right. So but I've got to get going to another meeting I have, so I'd love to elaborate a little bit more and go into some more depth.
Well, you know what, Jason, I can give you that opportunity tomorrow. And I honestly think that this is so important, because we really need to watch what's happening with this election coming up, because your vote matters. If you do nothing else that is important right now, it's to get out there and vote and bring friends. Bring friends to vote. Remember, it's our duty. I don't care what anybody says or does. It is our duty as Americans to show up, whether the vote is being counted accurately or not. And I'm pretty sure that it's being watched. And I believe that the whole thing is being watched with an eagle eye. And that it's probably the largest sting ever in the history of the world going on right now. So if you're being under surveillance to find out who the bad guys are, I would suggest we all go down there and vote and do what our duty is and prove that we're worthy of this country. Because it's something that should never be taken for granted. We should never have to fly this flag. Let's see if I get it in the right direction here. Ding, 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 like that. We should never have to fly a flag of distress. Never. The nation is in distress right now. And every single person needs to stand up, and they say, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, guess what? You've got neighbors, you've got family, you've got friends, you've got people you can talk to.
He will guide you.
God will guide us. Absolutely. And get in the fight, but go out and vote and let it shake out. It'll shake out. Things have a way of working out as long as we do what we're supposed to do. God honors intention.
Amen.
So tomorrow, I'm going to put you on the spot. Tomorrow, can you come back on tomorrow?
What time?
Well, I've got John Tater on at 9, and then Christina and Melissa are going to be, I think, here on at 10. And then after that, I've got Kevin Ship on, and he could come on at 12:30. So I'm going to be running long tomorrow. So between 10 and 12:30, if you want to come back on and give us an update on what's going on, because I think we just need to continue to beat this drum beat of get out there and vote. And you know what? It's going to come out. Everything's going to come out at some point in time.
Are you going to a watch party?
At this point in time, I'm not sure.
I was invited to
Do
one
you
by the.
have one that I should go to, Jason?
Well, I was just thinking maybe you should record one. Maybe you should have a couple people over and we do a watch party and we do a stream.
Oh, that'd be great. We could do it from the barn. Now
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
The horses from the back. Maybe we'll do a watch party from the barn. That would be great. You know, the last time President Trump, the rightful president of the United States, won, I called it 2 months early. My kids were like, no, he's not going to run. I'm like, trust me on this one. This is one of those mom energy things. About midnight, they're sitting there going, I can't believe it. He's going to win. He's going to win. I'm like, yeah, I told you so. They were up and we were up until 4:00 in the morning watching this and cheering and watching. I mean, it was so exciting to watch President Trump pull off this win. And he won it by a lot more than what he wanted. That we just haven't seen the real totals on this, because I think that was done with some very, very good, smart people that were able to unrig the election and make at least it enough honest to move forward. And there's a lot of conjecture, really good people don't always leave a paper trail, but I'm pretty sure that there was that God himself was watching over this.
We know what the real results were.
We know what the results were, and we know what the results are going to be now. It's
We
like,
knew what they were in
I love
2020.
watching these people fry that have honestly committed crimes of treason against this nation.
Look,
It's
I'll put it out.
I'm sorry they made a bad choice. And we'll see you tomorrow, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Have a
Bye,
good one.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
All right. And I'm going to go to a quick break right now. And then I'm going to bring my buddy, Chris Kaijala, on, because I'm just waiting for what he has to say. I love this guy. He's the one, Christy. So I'm going to say it right now. He's the one that did all the research, that never got the credit for it, that Gateway Pundit, the rag, threw out there, that they were the ones that did the most damage to me personally by calling me billionaire Don of Brandenburg. Pretty sure that's not sure. Never seen that financial report. But anyhow, they aren't exactly accurate, and that's why they get sued so much, because they get some of the truth out there, but it's kind of like making brownies and not putting the right stuff in it,
Forgetting the eggs.
It's like they don't quite get it right all the time. But at any rate, I'm going to set the record straight. It was Chris Kaijala that did the research behind it, and Chris Kaijala is an American hero who has not gotten enough people to really say that this guy is amazing. So I'm going to go to a quick break right now, and I will be back in 30 seconds or so with Chris Kaijala. And so stay tuned. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and welcome to our show today. I am going to cut right away to Chris Kaijala, and Christine is going to stay on. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you today?
It's always a good day when you come on, because you're always going to tell us all kinds of cool stuff that's going on and actually back it up with receipts and real research. I'm never going to get over the fact that people tried to steal the work that you did and didn't give you credit. So we're going to make sure that you have credit and credit and credit and credit. So thank you for calling yesterday. I think Chris is frozen. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I think we're going to have the same problem again where we have these delays.
Yeah, you know why? I think the reason why we're going to have these delays is because, certainly people don't want to hear what you and I have to say sometimes out there. And I can always keep it up on this side of it, but when I had Bob Terry on here, he was doing some diagnostic, and he said too, he said this is state level hacking going on because they don't want the truth out. It's like, okay, that's all right. Keep it up, guys. We're going to keep going.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Well, EIF has been doing a lot of things. You know, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media. I don't know if you heard about this patch thing that came out recently that Benson tried to address. Did you hear
No,
about
go
that?
ahead and fill me in on what you know, because you're going to know more about the subject than I am, and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so Secretary of State says that the Dominion came back and said there needed to be a patch
Oh
put
yeah,
on
yeah.
the Dominion machines to fix them. But the word on the street is that the patch changes the code, which obviously it would if there's some kind of a problem. But the machines have already been certified, and they're going to do a patch after the machines are certified. And not only are they going to do it in Michigan, but they're going to do it all across the entire country with every Dominion machine. So what does that tell you? The
Well, doesn't that
of,
automatically decertify the machines right there?
You would think so. Yeah, it would mean that they would have to recertify all the machines again. But are they going to do that? No, we don't have time. You know, so it doesn't bode well for having transparency and feeling like you can trust the election, especially the vote counts. So, that's one big problem. The other big problem that constantly happens is people use the same language that the Secretary of State does, that every registration is a real person, that every AV ballot came from a real person who's actually eligible to vote in the jurisdiction where the AV ballot comes in. And it's not true. So, there are some people, and I talked to somebody this morning who says that they're registered at another house. They live in another jurisdiction at a different house, but they own both of them, but they never changed their voter ID. So they're going to vote in the other jurisdiction. Well, that's probably okay if you haven't officially changed your address. It's not technically accurate as long as you don't vote in two different places. But in terms of challenging, people have to understand that, EIF has developed a huge amount of technical ability in locating registrations that need to be challenged. And people want to know all the details about the challenge. And the fact is that all you have to do is have reason to believe that the person shouldn't be voting in that jurisdiction. And the challenge just basically marks the ballot, so it has traceability, and the clerk can find out if this person really is eligible or not. So it's not that difficult, but there's a lot of moving parts. And, as you know, the Secretary of State keeps changing the rules to make it more difficult for us to fix this. So they made this change when we've been challenging ballots for quite a while, several years now. And the Secretary of State keeps changing this both on in-person challengers and whether or not you can challenge as a third party outside of the actual day of the election when a person is coming into a precinct or you're in an AV counting board. So, and this is what makes it hard for everybody. Now that they have early voting, you got to put more people in all these voting days that you have and have shifts or whatever. And then they're even trying to count ballots in advance. So the security for those ballots day after day, you've got to lock them up every night when you go away, and you got to unlock it again when you come back. And you got to make sure that the security is intact on those boxes or whatever. So, just in general, it's kind of strange that they would need to have all of this. You can't count them in one day, especially if you have machines worth thousands and thousands of dollars that are supposed to be accurate and doing all this work for you. But they keep expanding the amount of time that everybody's fooling around with ballots, which just makes it more easy to, it sounds suspicious. Makes it easier for fraud to occur. It just really does. And so EIF has been trying to automate this process. One of the major obstacles they put in our way was that you had to provide one piece of paper for every challenge. So, in the old days, you'd be in the AV Accounting Board and you just say, I challenge this ballot. And they would say, well, why are you doing that? You say, well, I have good reason to believe that they don't live in the jurisdiction. There's 4 ways to challenge, basically, outside of process challenges. There's only one you can seriously do, and that's an eligibility challenge. Guy puts in a permanent change of address, and you figure that out, and you happen to be there, and you challenge the ballot. Well, the Secretary of State changed the rules so that you couldn't do it in the AV Accounting Board. It has to be done in the clerk's office when they're doing the signature verification. And we talked about this last time we were together. This is really, there's no special thing that they do in the clerk's office that proves or establishes the voter. Just because they get a request for a ballot, send it out, and the ballot comes back to them, and they look at it and they say, okay, well, it came back, and now I'm going to make sure the ballot number and the precinct number is right, and they stick it in a box. That's pretty much all they do. I don't know if the signature verification is very good in the state at all. I've never actually seen a procedure for that. She was taken to court and said her signature procedure requirements for the 2020 were inadequate.
Did I ever tell you what I saw when I was in the one meeting there where it was a Board of Canvassers meeting and Brader was sitting in there? Did I ever tell you about that?
No.
There was a guy
Tell me again.
There was a guy there that was a signature gatherer verifier, and I couldn't believe that everybody's jaw didn't hit the ground with what he said. He literally in an open meeting admitted to the fact that he was, first of all, protecting his industry, which, okay. But what he said is he was allowed to go into where the signatures were kept. They scanned and took out every single petition, a signature, and he copied them and he shipped them to Bangladesh for signature verification with the ones that they had previously on file in Bangladesh. And nobody seemed to say a word. I was sitting there going, I'm sitting here in this meeting going, there's not one person saying, what the literal hell's going on here?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that people don't find that to be a problem. It is stunning, isn't it?
And they were the ones that are in charge of the election. That's immediate. That should have been an immediate. All right, out of the pool. You guys are out of here. You have botched this beyond every reasonable person's ability to even explain this.
Right.
And they enabled foreign intervention in our elections right there by their own admission. Never said a word.
Right. Exactly. Well,
I'm like,
this happened.
I'm sitting here going, dear God, Yeah,
it's sort of like the J.D. Vance interview with that woman who said, well, there's only a few apartment complexes in Colorado that got taken over by terrorists or, Venezuelan gangs. And J.D. Vance goes, what do you mean? Can you hear yourself? It's only a few. That's okay. We don't care about these people. What if you lived in an apartment complex, which I'm sure she doesn't, and yours was taken over? Do you think you'd be upset a little bit? And somebody would say, well, it's okay. Just a couple of them. What's the level that you have to rise to make this important?
What if you got like a gallon of water and there's one drop of arsenic in there? Is that a problem? Something that's set to kill you? A normal thinking person would say, we have a substantial problem here. Right. I don't know,
Well, there's a sign close to where I'm working right now that says no level of lead is safe in your water. So that's the same thing on elections. I mean, just think about this. Any sane person that has any grasp on technology would say that if you have everyone's signature, that should be locked down in a secure place in the government that no one has access to, because that's your private information. Matter of fact, that signature people can use to take out mortgages or do with it. Now, if you had a signature verification process that was up to date, You would scan the signature to see if it matches any known signatures of yours that are already on legal documents with the Secretary's driver's license, where you have to sign it or whatever. If that signature exactly matches, then it's a bogus application. Because you can take these, and I've seen this done. You can put those signatures into a CNC machine and put a pencil in the hand of the machine, and the machine will exactly duplicate that signature on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's 1,000 ways that you can use that signature to falsify a document, especially a ballot. So I'm getting at this just to say that how do you know if the ballot is a real person? The government doesn't really know. And the Secretary of State always talks as if every registration is a legal person. And then she comes out and says, well, you know, I took 800,000 plus things off the rolls. And she may have, you know, some of those were 8 or 10 years old. They've been sitting on the rolls for 8 or 10 years. And she didn't take them off the first year she was in. She keeps them on until after the election every time. Then she takes them off early the next year. Why does she do that? There's no legal reason to keep a deceased person registration in the file.
Unless you want dead guys voting, I guess.
Well, I told you last time we saw a guy in Muskegon County. He was born in 1896. He showed up in our file after the 2020 election. All of a sudden, this registration pops up. He's never voted before in the last 10 years, at least. The guy died in 87. Okay, I got his tombstone, picture of his tombstone in the county. And he was registered a year before he died in 86. And all of a sudden, in the 22 election, he voted, which is bad enough, but he voted in person.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's like a zombie apocalypse. This guy like come back from the dead and voted in person and such. I mean, thinking people really, we need more people thinking this through.
You got to wonder if I think they're checking to see if we're looking.
Yeah.
If you can't find a guy from 1890, there you go. If you can't find a guy from 1896,
give me a coffee.
Oh, good.
So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I could probably use another one here too soon. 1896 in the file, and you have no reason to pull him out of the file before the election? What are you doing? I mean, you're insanely incompetent if you don't constantly, because the problem is, see, she doesn't have control over what goes into the file. Now, if all the jurisdictional clerks had control over what went into the file, you could tell and came from. It would be the jurisdictional clerk in Muskegon County. But you've got the Soros-backed Ickes system, who our own Jonathan Brader is on the board of.
Thank you for bringing that up. This guy right there, that guy, that little Weasley-smiled guy right there.
Now, be nice.
No, I'm not. He was the one that sat there and said, you know, we're making up policies on the fly crap, and when they kicked me off the ballot. So I've got probable and reason, right?
Right. Well, you know, yeah, there's no checks and balances at all with this system. People make things up, and then no one can really challenge it. If they try to challenge it, even if they win, how many times has the Secretary of State lost in court? It's got to be going on, I think 8, somebody told me. I've lost track after 5 or 6, you know. But to say that there's some unique policy in the clerk's office that establishes eligibility of a voter, therefore I'm not allowed to challenge it once it gets to the AV County Board, is ludicrous. It's just a tactic to make things impossible for citizens, to make the elections transparent and trusted. Okay, so how many clerks are going to let you walk into their office and sit down and let you watch signature verification? Are they going to do signature verification? You got to negotiate a time for a couple hours every day, you know, for a month and a half in advance when ballots are coming back. I mean, it's insanely unfair to expect that somebody can do that. And that's why you have one election day You get enough people, you all go do it and get it done. And I'll tell you, if they don't make a vote count final within 1 or 2 days, I mean, there's monkey business going on. There's no reason. If you have 9 days in advance, I think the amount of ballots that have been already submitted is like 50% of the vote, close to 50%. Well, they had 72 million across the country. I think last time Trump said he had 84 million votes, and Biden supposedly got more than that. So, if you got 76 million, you're pretty close to 50%. You just need to be able to manage the counting process. So, it's absurd. We've got a little presentation that EIF did recently, and it shows the Secretary of State is saying that inactives are about 1.2 million, and active registrations about 7.1 million in the state of Michigan. But real voters are really only about 85% of the real population. So the real voters are about 6.5 million. And she seems to think that inactives or whatever are not going to be voted. Well, they can be voted. She assumes that they're real people, though. So those are people that have moved or they're gone, and everybody's legal and good, and nobody's going to vote in inactive registration. Now it happens. Seen some of that. But getting back to the GBI story, which we've talked about a few times, we still don't know how many of those registrations in fact got into the system. We don't know how many of those registrations were actually voted. Not one lawsuit was brought against anybody who filled out a bad registration, which registration is a felony. So you got somewhere between 10,000 and 12,500 registrations that we have no accounting for. And when they say, oh, that was turned over to the FBI, well, fine. The FBI has some reason to look at it because GBI was in all the swing states and in a total of 20 states. They should be looking into all the cheating that happened everywhere else. But in Michigan, Nestle is responsible for filing, lawsuits against people that violate Michigan law. And it's a Michigan law that was broken when you fill out a fraudulent registration. It's not a federal case, right? And she didn't bring one lawsuit. She didn't even bring a lawsuit against GBI because their compliance was completely inadequate to check to see if those registrations were going to be real or not. And in fact, I don't even know how you do that if you're a third party, unless you have a tremendous database of information outside of the registration itself. How do you know if their driver's license is right? Don't know. Unless the person who filled out the thing says it's absolutely correct. So if you got 10,000 bad registrations, then that means that all those people that worked on that project were not checking, or they didn't never talk to a real person. They all should be indicted for crime, but they don't want to let the numbers out, probably because they want to say, well, we had a clean election, nothing happened. Well, they claim nothing happened with those 10,000 registrations, but they haven't proven anything yet. So, and as I keep saying, Muskegon has 30,000, somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 excess registrations in the file. So find out which ones of those are real persons or not takes a considerable effort. And really, this should be the clerk doing this and the Secretary of State. I mean, we're doing stuff, but Secretary of State it's their job to clean the file, right? It's not our job.
The gap is there between actual registered voters and the population that could be registered? I heard that there's just a tremendous amount in Michigan.
Yeah, well, it's really high. If I could share my screen, I would show you something.
You can. If you go down to present, and then you'll click on the window you want to show. Just click the correct window, and then you can share that way.
Okay. Let's see what we got here. Click tab to share. Windows, this is the window I want to share here.
Yep. This is kind of
Let's
a
try that.
slick system, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it
it's pretty
really,
good.
really is it works pretty well.
Let me try to blow this slide up a little bit more. So here's a picture. And this came out of the Muskegon report that I authored. And we had 25, 30 people looking into the database. And in the report that we put out in, I think it was May of 20, did it on the entire state. So this is the entire state, and it's updated to October 2024 here. Okay, so this line, or the orange line, whatever that is, that's the citizens of voting age population. So that's 100% of the people that are allowed to vote. Okay, this is what Benson said. She wanted 100% voter participation from every adult. That's why she's made it available for when you get your license renewed. Anytime something happens, they're trying to vote. They even registering illegals. That's another story. So this shows that there should only be about 7.6 million. This is the adults. The voting citizens have declined. Michigan's population is declining. People are moving out of the state, partially because there are no jobs. And this here, when Benson took office on this dotted black line, is when the slope of the line changed and it went up. And if you see this little spike here, this is the spike that we showed that happened during the 2020. It's actually worse. She didn't report a whole bunch of late registration that year, and then she took them all out the next year before she reported the next number. So she corrected the line back down here. But as Dr. Franks, I think, said, if you look at his data, every major election, there's a spike. See the spike here in 16?
Mm-hmm.
Similar kind of thing. A whole bunch of stuff was put. So can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you. You had a little bit of a glitch there, so go back just a little bit. I think when you move around, it freezes.
So this is where Benson took office. Yeah, this spike here is not all the registrations that were reported. More were in here, and then she removed a bunch. But you can see in 2016, similar thing happened. It's a spike right around election time. A whole bunch of new ones come in, and all of a sudden they're all taken out again. But the difference between the voting age population at 7.6, we're up here at 8.4 million. You know, there's about a 1.2 million over registration.
How can they possibly justify this and not addressing this?
Well, they don't think anyone knows. They don't think anyone knows. We know. You know, it's kind of unconscionable. I mean, they keep adding where are these registrations coming from? Most of these that I've seen are people that have already lived fictions. Just somebody is shuffling old information back into the file, which means that it looks like it's a real person, but it's not. How do I stop sharing?
It stopped.
Okay. So what it means is that there's a whole bunch of registrations in there that the clerks think are real, but they're not real people. I mean, I think by her own admission, I'm pretty sure this is true. She threw a whole bunch of stuff in 2020, data that Terry Land and Ruth Johnson had removed in previous years. I can't even see how that's, you know, it's not ethical, let alone be legal, I suppose. You can't verify that the person is real and lives at that jurisdiction. Why would you even put that in the file? But a local clerk can't tell the difference, because when they get an AV ballot request, they look in the file and they say, oh, this person, he's still there. Well, he may have moved out 10 years ago, but the registration is still active. Okay. And so when they get the AV ballot back, they look in the file for the signature. And if the signature is close or the same, they let it through. Maybe that signature is one of those from Bangladesh. I don't know. But if the person doesn't live at that address anymore, then it can't be a real ballot. But the only way you can stop something like that is if you canvass the entire, well, we know how to sort them out, so we can figure, 10 or 20,000 of the bad ones. You have to do a lot of work to see if they exist as a person or if they've moved away from the home that they're in. Then you have to go knock the door to be 100% sure. You can't just say, well, I think. So it puts a huge barrier up to cleaning the files. And the Secretary of State can claim, like I said before, that she removed 800,000, but then there's other organizations that have access to the file directly that can put that 800,000 back in. And so she has plausible deniability that she's cleaning the file and doing a good job. But why isn't she regulating the people that are supposed to be cleaning the file? The whole reason to secure Eric for the system was to help the clerks to keep the file clean. And they're not keeping it clean. I don't know if it's them or Rock the Vote, or there's several other organizations that have direct access into our voter file, which means they have access to your driver's license, your date of birth, and other personal information, which I cannot get in a FOIA. I cannot FOIA the poll book information and get the entire list of information because there's personal information. And they've declined to give us information saying that there's personal information. Well, we said, just delete that. Just delete the personal information, hide the columns. I mean, this is just a database. You don't have to request those pieces of information, but they'll deny us poll book information because they say there's private information. Yet the company down in Ohio who's fiddling with our file has all that information. And do we know if they're secure? Do we know if they're sharing it with anybody else? Well, when it's outside the government's hands and you don't know what's happening to it, you really don't.
Well, there's
Whether
no
it's in
check
Ohio,
balances whatsoever on it. It's just like the guy that was taking signatures to Bangladesh, who already had signatures that they were comparing him again. This is going on, and these companies are getting a direct access to all of our information. And I have no idea how this is even possible.
Well, it's possible because nobody's guarding the hen house. The people that are in power, I don't think they understand how to do it properly, but they're certainly not getting any consultants in there to help them to do it. You and I know from business that the way to make your business really secure, to make your clients know that you're doing the right things and that what you do is always going to result in a good answer or a good design, is if you have an ISO 9000 system. And you can spend a considerable amount of time going through your processes and everything and codifying how you're going to do things, how you're going to check things, how you're going to make things secure. And the companies that have ISO 9000 are some of the best companies to work with. And it takes an enormous amount of effort to make that happen. Well, we don't have any ISO 9000 on our voting system, and we're parsing it out to people outside the state and outside the country. All our personal information is exposed. I mean, who was that guy, Koenig or whatever, out of Lansing?
Koenig, that was Eugene
Koenig
or Koenig, yeah.
Right. So he was servicing, what was it, it was election inspectors, whatever, in California and other states. He was, getting business, taking care of their database need for people working the elections, but he was saving it on servers that were in China. I mean, that should be absolutely out of bounds, but nobody probably put in his specifications saying where's your server going to be and what's the properties of that server that you can protect that data from being hacked or being shared. You know, how many people have access to it, et cetera, et cetera.
And over
So
the transmission lines, I mean, how much stuff gets lost over transmission? Because, you know, that's one of the ways that they were using, AT&T was using jumping the border to Canada in order for surveillance, because they jumped it over in Canada. They grabbed the information in a spy situation, shipped it back here so that the United States was compliant.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So let me show you a couple more slides here if I can. Let's see, where am I here? Oh, I'm going to share again.
I get a great son that brings me coffee. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, this is cool.
Very cool.
Let's see where I'm at. Yeah. 12. So this is a presentation that Sandy Kiesel gave a few weeks back at the America Project. Well, Jason Ickes was there and a lot of other people.
I love Jason. He's cool.
Yeah. I saw him on your show here just before I came on.
We really are very good friends. And, you know, it's like when you have somebody that you respect so much, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that people get down into the details and, you know, they get good information about what's going on. So EIF, this is our data team who did this, analyzing all the registrations in the state. You know, we believe there's about 1.5 million of them that have some kind of an issue. You know, 200,000 that need research. There's 250,000 that have already been flagged that need some action. Registrations with issues acknowledged by the SOS and the clerks, over 500,000, almost 600,000. And there's inactive registrations that no one is doing anything about 600,000. So 1.5 million out of, you know, 8 million. But really, if you're going to do a percentage, you should do this based on the number of real voters. And really active voters are only 85% of that 7 million I was telling you about. So say there's 6.5 million voters who register to vote. And of that, you know, if 70% turnout comes out, then what's 70% of about 6 million? You know, you're talking 4 or 5 million voters, somewhere in that. But you got 1.5 million of these registrations hanging out here with some kind of problem that should be addressed. So there's address issues, which is yellow portion here. You have registration issues, which are all these 318,000. Data missing or inaccurate. And the whole 1900 birth date thing was apparently put in when the electronic system was formulated decades ago, and they still haven't removed all the 1900 dates. They're supposed to update them to real dates. So completely inadequate attention to the voter file from that point of view.
I'm not sure that switched out from its.
So we get absentee vote.
Our research indicates almost 20% of Michigan registrations have issues. Are you on a different slide right now?
Yeah.
Okay. You may have to back out of that and then click on a different one.
Do I need to reshare this?
Yeah, I might have to reshare that one. There's another way to do it, but I can't do it while we're online.
We've got a number of slides here. So
see if we can add on. Looks like we froze up here a little bit, but Chris will be back. This is what happens, live broadcast, and sometimes the connections don't always work the way we want it to, and that's okay. We get it figured out. But sorry, Chris, keep going.
If you've moved within Michigan, or you don't have a forwarding address, or you're non-deliverable, or if you've moved out of the state of Michigan, you got 127,000 of these. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Okay, if they're non-deliverable, you shouldn't ever be sending out an AV ballot. But some of these do get ballots sent out. Now, I know a person, this is sort of off the topic, but it's relevant. Their daughter is registered at their home. She moved out of state, go to college or do something, moved to another state, and now is going to do an overseas thing down in Guatemala. She gets a ballot at the house for the daughter. And then somebody called and said, hey, are you going to vote your ballot? Let me help you with that. She says, well, that's my daughter, and she's not in the state. Now, I don't even know why I got a ballot. And the woman says, no problem. You can help her out with that. And she's going to go and help her to vote her ballot for her. Okay? Which is illegal. You can't. And I think some adults are doing this. They're being talked into voting for their child who might be away at college or some other trip. Help you just fill it out and send it in for them. That's actually illegal. You can carry a ballot for somebody who lives in your household if you're related to them, but you're not allowed to fill out their ballot for them. So there are people that are actively calling around and trying to get people to fill out ballots illegally.
I think there's so many people that don't really know what the rules are, that they just, people will come and talk to them and they believe what everybody says instead of checking it out to know what the law is.
Right.
When in doubt, stay out of it, guys. Just stay out of it. And if you don't know what the rules are, the law is, stay out of it, because you could really be walking into something really bad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's people that call them, and if they're uncomfortable about it, maybe they won't do it. But a lot of people, they feel like it's an opportunity for them to support their candidate, even more. But yeah, so we also have data to say that not only is there a problem with duplicate registrations in the state of Michigan, but that people that are actively registered in this state actually have voter registrations that exist in other states like Florida, Texas, Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina. So, there's a nationwide problem with all kinds of other stuff, and it's organizations like EIF that are trying to cross data to be able to figure out, how do you stop that type of thing? You have to research these things and take them off the rolls. And so we keep pushing for this kind of thing, but it's have no interest in helping out. So, and there's another slide in here about votes that happen in the future, which I don't really even understand. The ballot's dated after the election, but then they pull it forward.
What?
Yeah. There's ballots that are dated after the end of the election, but they say, oh, can't take away anybody's vote, so we're just going to put them in the
backdate that little thing a minute and just fix that little error. That's what they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like there's no controls whatsoever. And any laws that there are out there, even the Board of Elections is ignoring. And I know this from firsthand experience at the recount. The recount in Muskegon County, I was in charge of that, trained all the poll challengers for that. And, the Board of Elections, kind of intimidated. Well, they definitely did intimidate a lot of our challengers, that if they were going to make a challenge, and I was standing there when they did this to one of my people. They said, you're trying to take that person's vote away from them. And the person was stunned. And no, you're not. When you challenge, you're challenged that the ballot is eligible to be voted or not eligible. Whether or not there's a real person behind that ballot or a fraudulent person person that's fraudulently presenting that ballot, it's not your problem. You're going to comport with the law and say, if the ballot is all filled out in green ink, then I can challenge it. It's not supposed to be green ink. I was I mean, if you were counting ballots by hand, that wouldn't matter. If you're running it through a machine, but the law says it's got to be black or blue ink, you know? So, et cetera, et cetera. Any kind of personal affront to somebody that may have sent that ballot in. So this is an intimidation of challengers. You know, the Secretary of State, when they passed the law to be able to charge a poll challenger with a felony if they harass somebody, you know, clearly you're not supposed to do that. There's already law on the intimidates a poll challenger that they can be charged with a felony. Okay. And so in my view, you know, Patrick Kolbeck says that poll challenging is effectively illegal. Well, it's not, but
what? Wait a minute. Go back to that again. Patrick, you said Patrick Kolbeck said that poll challengers are illegal?
Effectively, the Secretary of State has made it illegal to challenge. And this has put a chill.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Well, it's put a chill over people, you know. If you can get, that's a pretty frightening prospect. People in Michigan don't want to put themselves in harm's way. And so by putting a law like that out, Secretary of State has intimidated people from even trying a challenger. This is her worst case of trying to limit challenger ability in the state of Michigan. And, you know, we train, I'm a poll challenger trainer, and I tell them over and over again, you have to be professional, never raise your voice, be courteous, you know, never impede the process unless you're making a challenge. You can tell them to stop, you know, processing ballots. But I made a challenge once and they delayed and delayed and delayed taking care of the challenge, and they kept processing ballots against the rules. And I said, look, you have to do this. I'm making a legal challenge. Your duty is to process that challenge. Stop counting those ballots. There's more ballots coming up I'm going to challenge. And so I pulled out the law on them and I read it to them. I said, pursuant to this part in Michigan law, voter law, you have to promptly take care of this challenge or else you could be facing a felony. And it scared the living daylights out of the person. They didn't think that that could happen to them. They had been thrown into the liaison position because the Secretary of State is changing the rules. She said, are you threatening me? I said, no, I'm not threatening you. I'm just telling you I have legal standing here. And your duty is to follow through with the process that you legally are supposed to do. I make a legal challenge. You write it down. You mark the ballot. We keep going. We didn't even stop counting the ballot. The ballot still gets counted. So just mark the ballot. What do you care? I made a challenge. It's legal. Mark the ballot. Go on, you know. No, it took them 30 minutes. And then they called the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections said, no, don't do it. Directly told them because they were unwilling to make the call.
Why? Why would they tell them? I mean, the Board of Elections told them not. I mean, why would they do that unless they have nefarious reasons?
Well, it was the challenger rules that were deemed illegal by the Court of Claims. There's a little foo-foo paragraph in there that says that the clerk has determined that every vote that gets down into the AV counting board is eligible. So I can't challenge the eligibility of anybody.
Do you know the Court of Claims is actually an illegal court?
Okay, well,
under North County, it doesn't exist. They just made it up.
How about that one? Even if they were illegal, you know, they recognized that the law did not allow. Well, they might be illegal, but they made a good call because the law says that I have a right to. But the Secretary of State changed the rules against the current Michigan law. So they actually did something proper. And then the Supreme Court put a stay on it, illegal eventually anyway, but it happened just before the election. You know, that made it easy for her to just pedal right through. What really is astounding is what I heard, who was it? Somebody say about that legal process. There's like 5 paragraphs in a 20-page challenger document that needed to be fixed. And the Nestle wrote 400 pages of legal brief to prevent that from happening. Okay, that'll tell you almost everything you need to know right there. It's clearly not in compliance with the law, but they're going to write 400 pages of brief to try to say that they can do something illegal, and the Court of Claims kicked their booty, said, no, you're still illegal. I don't care how many pages you send to me, right? But they get to use it anyway because it happened like a month and a half before the election, before the 23 election. Before the 23, I think. No, it was the 22 election. So it went into 23, and then they dragged it on until they couldn't make a decision before the 23 election. It was still, they came out with a new version of the thing. It still said the same. Somebody needs to go in handcuffs someplace. Secretary of State does whatever she wants, and then she's found to be illegal, and she just keeps doing stuff. Nobody's doing anything to her.
Have you ever thought of running for Secretary of State?
Yeah, I thought about it once or twice.
I think you should run for Secretary of State. I absolutely think that would be the best choice on the ballot if you ran for Secretary of State.
Problem, I could fix the problem, but you'd have to. You think that people are going to actually put up a candidate that's actually going to fix the problem?
Well, they'll knock you out like they did me, but I mean, that doesn't mean that we stop. It means you just keep going, and I'm still non-conceding. So
Okay.
you just got to keep fighting and be too ornery to step down, right? I think you'd be great.
I certainly would like to be part of the solution. So I know a few people that know how to fix these things. There's people that know quality systems. They know how to, write things so that they're airtight. And the biggest problem is that they developed this software system for the state, and it may not be a very good one. Now, whether or not they have complete control over it, or if it's just a train wreck all the time, we get all kinds of sloppy data from them. We don't know if they're doing it on purpose. So in the last QVF they sent us right around September, they didn't give us any data. They just gave us names and addresses. They refused to give us all the other pertinent data that we've been getting for 4 years. You just eliminated it. What do? You say, well, you got to give me the rest of the data. They go, whatever. So data, it's pretty hard to get the job done. So my battery is going to go soon here. We are coming to
I really appreciate you coming on today, Chris. This was really a pleasure. It's always good to talk to you. Yeah, I would
thank you.
I would think that a Brandenburg Kaijala ticket wouldn't be a bad plan here if you were to run for Secretary of State. Two truth tellers that would be putting the state correct. I mean, we have to have good people who are competent enough to run it, and then and then we're going to rope in Sandy and Joanne too, and say, we need you part of the team, because you guys have done so much. EIF is just extraordinary, and I know the people that I trust, and it's like that I know that are really in it to fix it. But that would be an extraordinary.
We put out a whole bunch of data recently and let DePerno release it, so it would get more coverage. Because nobody pays any attention to us. We're kind of squashed. We don't have a big voice out there. We don't have any budget. Nobody will give us any money because all these other scoundrels are running around soaking all the money up. We don't know exactly what they're getting done. But then there was all kinds of controversy because people apparently were trying to take credit for our data that we did. It's Joanne and the data team doing a tremendous job.
I want to bring somebody on a minute real quick.
But people need to know that just because they don't hear from us doesn't mean that we're not digging into the data, because that's where we're going to win, is on the data.
I can just tell you that you're amazing, and what you've done is just extraordinary. And I've been shouting it from the tops of the hills here. It's EIF, it's Chris Kaijala, it's Joanne, it's Sandy that are heavy lifting on this stuff. You know, you've got Jonathan Chapman, who's I love Jonathan. He's cool. You know, and some really, really good people. I mean, Jonathan's a cool guy. I love Jonathan. You know, he's funny. He's a little edgy, and he's funny, and I just love him. But you guys have just done an extraordinary job, and like you said, I really have a problem with all these people that are just doing it for the money, soaking the money up and going in different directions, and then subverting the work that you've actually put into it. And it's got to be maddening to you. But you know, point being is that I appreciate what you've done. What were you trying to show me here, Christina?
He said that he had a large amount of data. Can anybody have access to that data?
Perno put it out recently. You have to talk to Sandy about how it went out. I didn't get copied on that, but
yeah,
other people, ones who have it all and have the receipts for it. So, yeah, you have to call Sandy and talk with her about it.
Pretty amazing. Well, I thank you guys.
Yeah.
I thank you guys so much for being on here today. And I thank you for coming on today, Chris, especially before the election. Everybody has to just keep in mind that there's a lot of cheating going on. There's a ton of it. And you have to look at what the Secretary of State and the people in Lansing have done to hide this from us. It is a direct attack against we the people. We know it. We're seeing what they're doing. And I believe this is going to be one of the biggest.
There is no, need to say one thing. When they say that there is no fraud, they better have some way to back that up. You can't just say there's no fraud because nobody brought evidence of it. That's not a logical argument. We're bringing evidence that there is fraud. And so they can't say, well, there's no fraud because I don't see any. Okay, well, you don't see any. You can't say there's no fraud.
Right, because they're not looking at it.
Go and find, make sure fraud. But, you know, election from 2020 that I've told you about had 1,600 ballots that were never voted in 10 years. These registrations had never voted. We went and canvassed all these, and we had 40% of them come up bad. People moved. Most of them were people that moved out of the state. So that's 400 or 500 ballots were bad out of 8,000. And the margin of victory in that race was 292. Okay. So we got the data on that. Now we got to go knock every one of these doors. We did a virtual canvas, found 40%. We knocked about 250 doors. 150 of those doors gave us about 35 to 40% error rate. So, you know, it takes a long time to go through 1,600 names. And in Muskegon, we got 30,000 names that are expired or fraudulent. And when this Nestle won't come up and give us the details, Secretary of State counted the 12,500 ballots from GBI Strategies. Haven't heard a peep out of her. How many of those were illegal? We don't know. How many of those are still in the system? How many voted? Still don't know. She won't tell us. If she wants to be transparent, she needs to come out with the numbers and tell us.
There should be a law that requires them.
Well, somebody needs to be in handcuffs because they haven't. There's one person with anything yet. Not one person. The FBI, it's not their job to enforce Michigan voter law. It's Nestle's job to enforce Michigan voter law. She knows how many illegal voter registrations were put in. And this is not to mention how much ballot harvesting may or may not have happened because they cut the investigation short. They wouldn't let them find that out. But it was a classic case where this is probably a ballot harvesting operation, but they never were allowed to investigate the whole thing.
I was just sad. So, well, we're going to go back to the fact that everybody has to vote no matter what they're doing. Vote, because I think this is the biggest sting in the history of the United States. It's everybody. Everybody's being watched right now. Let them commit their crimes. It's not going to end well for them. And have a little faith, follow God. I'm going to go ahead and let's say a prayer. We're going to end this here. We made it all the way to noon today. So that's great. Thanks for coming on today, Chris, and you too, Christina. So let's say a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Chris, Christina. That's a lot of Chris's. Christina, and and everybody who, Jason Ickes and everyone, Vicky Davis, everyone who came on today to share their knowledge with us and help us get educated. We need to not take everything or anything at face value. We need to check things out. And we're thankful that you've given us people to help us learn what's really going on, to challenge the things that we think have been going on, and to actually come up with actual truth and research to back our claims. And we're so thankful that you're taking us through this process of learning what's really going on. We love you so very much, and we ask your blessings upon this day, every day, the elections that are going on in these United States, and help us, God. We really want it to be honest. We want everybody's voice to be heard. We treasure the fact that you've given us this nation, and it needs a little repair right now, a little bit of maintenance. But you know what? The greatest thing that you've given us is yourself to guide us through these times, and each other, that we can celebrate being your children together in service to you on this earth, being the body of Christ. And we're just thankful for everything you've done for us. And we want to let you know that we love you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. There you go, guys. So any last words, guys? Let's do 30 seconds.
No, I'm good. I think I said enough.
You know, just get out and vote. Whatever.
I think anybody who... Go ahead. Say that again.
Get out and vote. If you're in the state of Ohio, make sure you vote no on issue 1, and yes to Bernie Moreno, yes to Donald J. Trump. Remember that we, the people, are responsible for repairing this country, because it is our country, and it's up to we, the people, to do our constitutional duty.
And tonight, EIF has a poll challenger training at 7:30. No, 7 o'clock. You can sign up on the EIF poll challenger page. Go to electionintegrityforce.com, sign up, and get trained as a challenger so you can challenge tomorrow.
All right, this is your call, everybody. The United States is in distress, and we're telling you, you got to get out there and vote. That's the way we're going to fix it. So flying the distress flag, calling to every single American out there to get in the game, do what you need to do, get out there and vote, you know, and bring friends with you. I mean, just because things seem like it's going to hell doesn't mean that they actually are, number one. And the only reason why they really would go to hell is if we just give up, fly the white flag of surrender, and go away. That's never going to happen. Okay. There's some of us that are never going to stop fighting for this and making sure that good things are happening, and that fighting for the rights of every single American, not illegal. If you're here illegally, that just by the title says you're a lawbreaker, right? And Mayorkas is the first one on the C-130s going down to Gitmo on a one-way trip to a sunny place never to return, followed closely by, I can name a few more that follow him on that. And I say we just pack them in like sardines, the ones that have committed treason here, right? And send them off to be tried and see what happens, see how that goes for them. But in the meantime, you know what? We're gonna stand together. So this is that part of the show, boys and girls, where we go to go to BrandenburgforGovernor.com, the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I want to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about this non-conceding thing, because we're not conceding to liars, cheats, and thieves. We're going to keep fighting here. And we're not going to stop until we end this problem. The behavior is going to improve. All right, this mom's saying it. We're going to see better behavior. So with that said, guys, God bless you all. God bless all of you love. And God bless America.
Peace.
Yeah. Have a great day. And you know what? If you don't have a good example, if things don't look like it's going right, get in the game. You can't sit there and complain about it and whine that somebody else isn't fixing things for you. We're adults. We handle problems. And that means that we're all in this thing, and we're going to fix it together. So have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks guys. Bye.